Hello, my fellow Westorians. It is Saturday. We are here to discuss the upcoming penultimate. I love that word, penultimate. It sounds so badass, doesn't it? It's so powerful. Penultimate.
Sounds more ultimate than ultimate does.
It kind of does, because it's bigger, right? It's like, it's not only ultimate, but you had to write it down with a pen.
It's iron rod size.
As usual, we gather on Saturday to make predictions, to talk about things we missed on Monday, maybe things from the interviews and behind the scenes. Almost anything goes, anything other than leaks. We'll talk about what we saw in the trailers, what we know is probably coming from Fire and Blood. We'll go, always got to throw that probably in there, because it's, sometimes it surprises us. And with us today to discuss this, which figures to be a pretty exciting episode, The Green Council. Girls Gone Canon, welcome to the show. How are y'all doing?
Hey guys,
Hello.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us back.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Good, we're excited.
If you can't see, Chloe and Eliana are in the same location right now, which is very exciting to me personally.
That is right.
It's important. We're holding a war council. You know, some big things are happening while the Green Council is about to go down. We said, no way. No, we hold our own Black Council, personally.
You can see Chloe's in her Team Rhaenyra shirt.
Yeah,
Oh,
San
nice.
Rixian of it all.
Team Rhaenyra
Excellent.
tank top, so.
She almost wore a green sweater. We were like, that's a little gauche, isn't it?
It was like too warm outside, is mostly what it was. I was like, oh, it's October. It's like autumn. And then I like set that aside. I was like, absolutely not. It is, I will die.
Yeah.
I will be like
hot.
the Strongs cooking.
Yeah, you can
inside
tell
of
I'm
my
playing
God.
both sides here because I've got my Tark finery on, but I've got a splash of green.
That's true.
Both
Yes,
ways.
yes.
And I'm just wearing a Kingsguard shirt because,
Criston, no.
hey, all the Kingsguard,
No, we can say
including the
yay.
ones who support
Yay,
Rhaenyra.
Eric.
Yeah.
Boo, Auric, and yay, Eric.
Yeah, and we knew we'd talk about the Kingsguard a good bit today. They're all over the trailers. Eric
True.
and Auric especially, but yeah, also Criston's in there and a little bit of Harold Westerling, maybe some other folks. The Kingsguard have been gaining a little more prominence, which makes sense because they're about to split. And we need to know who's who, especially the ones who look exactly like each other, minus a slight mustache feature that helps tell them apart. Yes, mustache twirling villain or mustache twirling good guy, depending on your orientation. Blacks versus green. I almost said Grax. I always said we combine blacks to greens into one thing, and I almost just said it by accident.
That's like the ultimate ship name. It's when you ship every like person on the black side with their corresponding person on the green side. Like you ship Otto and Damon and Alicent and Rhaenyra. Like if you're a full on Grax shipper.
The Grax shipper.
Yeah, I was going to say, we call that Grax shipping where I'm from.
So over there on Girls Gone Canon, you all have both barrels loaded. You're not just covering the show, but you're continuing your reread during the season, which is that is great. We're proud of you for keeping up that schedule.
So
That's not hard. That's not easy to do. That's a lot of work. So tell us what you're doing right now specifically.
Yeah, so we regularly, not just House of the Dragon, we are doing a House of the Dragon episode every Tuesday morning. We put those out. Sometimes it might be a little later in the morning, depending on how late and long the episode goes. Asterisk, asterisk. All spoilers, though. And Eliana, do you want to speak to why we do all spoilers for our weekly House of the Dragon episodes?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons, right? So we have covered the Dance of the Dragons before, like, in our Patreon episodes, and we love the dance. Like we love this storyline in general. It was the one that I wanted to see adapted, and I feel I'm really pleased. I'm so happy. Everything's going amazing, but we want to be able to discuss the story in full. And also, it's like you're talking about like work. It's a lot of work to think about. Like, can I say this? Can I not say this? And like keeping things like non-spoilery, but also we wanted to make sure that like, because we love this, we want to make sure that we're still like having fun with it, right?
Yeah.
And it's important to us to approach it the way that we want, and that's why we picked the spoiler episode to talk about things with you.
Yeah,
Right
but
on.
we have been watching your first reviews, and keeping those
thanks.
so limited with Sean. Those are very interesting, and they kind of tell us, they're like, oh, this is what the people think, like that aren't us, that aren't weirdos that are reading Fire and Blood every other day. Otherwise, normally we're doing a Song of Ice and Fire reread POV by POV characters. So we start with one character and we only go through their chapters. We have had Ashea on in the past for a Sansa episode,
Hell yeah.
as well as for some bonus episodes we've done at Patreon. Aziz, you're next, just so you know. We have plans for you.
Yeah,
All right.
but we can't tell you when.
Yeah. Yeah.
The reading order is very secret.
It's very secret and safe for the most part. But right now we're on Bran, and we are just wrapping up a Game of Thrones. We just had an episode with Manu over at From Nauticast.
Nice.
Really fun episode for Bran 6. So Bran 7, and then we're on to Clash.
Ooh, things get a little more magical then, huh?
Oh, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, Bran chapter is really good to read all the way through, especially after some of the things that may or may not be telegraphed to us from the show.
I feel like some POVs probably benefit more than others from reading them in that way, and I feel like Bran is probably top of the pile for which one like does the most justice to his. I mean, it's so separated throughout the book.
That's a great point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Right
true,
on.
yeah.
So definitely check out Girls Gone Canon, y'all, if you haven't already. I know a lot of y'all are already regular listeners, but the rest of you, what are you waiting for? You can certainly check us out after this. If you're not catching it live on YouTube, you can find the replay also on YouTube or on Spotify. Yes, they have videos these days on Spotify. Podcast versions anywhere you get podcasts. Also Spotify, Amazon Music, or Google Play or iTunes, all the usual spots. Super chat from Karina Strick from New Zealand says, all my favorites together. Very cool. All right.
What's this
we're so happy to be your favorites.
theory you mentioned here?
A theory?
Yeah. Corinna has this awesome theory they sent us about Helaena, that the reason in Fire and Blood, possibly, and what they might adapt for TV, that Helaena chooses the younger son is that she might, with her dragon dreaming, already know about her son's death and trying to trick the fates. And that was that email that we got for Blood and Cheese, that email really changed my life. I think about it every day. Every day.
Well, it's actually like you're trying to trick the fates, but you just can't.
There is no
in doing
tricking
that, you make it happen.
It just shows that old lesson. Yeah. Wow, that is a really good take, because we've been wondering all season long, well, not all season long, the moment we realized that she's probably a dragon dreamer, we were wondering if she would dream of Blood and Cheese in some way or another, and that's a really good take. Yeah. I mean, it's tragic as hell, but it's very insightful. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Glad to have Corinna here.
Yep. All thankful for all of our listeners, even especially when they bring great ideas like that.
You're like, even that one.
Yeah, even that sad one. No, especially that sad one. Yeah.
Where are you going with that?
Marley sends a super chat, says, how do you think Corlys will feel about the murder of his brother, and do you think he and his wife will ever learn the truth about their son Laenor? Yeah, it's interesting because he doesn't really have a reaction in Fire and Blood to it either. Like, he's sick
his
during
cousin
it.
There, technically.
It is, you're right.
It's a little bit less intense.
That's true, but also his cousins have their tongues pulled. Like, a lot of Velaryons are impacted by this, and there's never like a on-page reaction. So they definitely have a lot to play with. So I'm curious what y'all think. Any takes on what you might think he's going to do? I mean, I think he's going to just have to go with it. Like, well, that my brother did bad things and paid the price.
I feel like he'll be like, my brother is dead and the king he died under is dead too.
Yeah.
Who's at fault here? But I don't know. Maybe he'll be mad at Damon. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because we are getting so much of Corlys as this really complex character in the show, and I think it might be one of those things where perhaps we see it. He's like a very shrewd like negotiator, right? It's something where he might use that as something of a bargaining chip when they start forming the Black Council. Like, we saw that he like kind of withheld and was like, all right, so sure, I'll wed Laenor to Rhaenyra, but the kids have to be Valyrians, right? And so we see like a mix of his ambition, and I think we'll see that will be a big motivator for why he still like pairs with them, but I'm wondering what he'll ask for.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Wow.
You see Rhaenys upholding what she thinks would be her husband's wishes and what she knows to be his wishes in the last episode. And I found that really interesting because you see that those aren't what she wants. That's not at all what she wanted. She could have pushed what she wanted. He's not home right now. He left her to go fight in the Stepstones. They're estranged right now.
Seems like
right?
it, yeah.
We saw her with taking those rings off. I mean, they're estranged. They are not happy with one another probably right now. They have a lot of grief in their life. So I think it was interesting that she upheld what she thought was his wishes, because he whether he wants to admit the bastardry or not of these boys, he's more concerned with legacy than he is with the color and thickness of their blood.
Yeah, that's very well said. I think that he's probably going to, like Eliana said, find a way to profit from this. To like, well, I'm not going to, since it's not enough for me to switch sides, well, let me get some payback. Something like he may not. He even said, if we recall episode 3, when Aemond was fomenting rebellion or mutiny, Corlys called him out for that. Look, you my brother. No, if you go against us like this, then, and he kind of left ... He didn't really say, but I guess this is kind of that ... This is what happens.
Yeah. So it's sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask a follow-up question for both of you, which is I've been asking all our guests. Do you think A, Corlys and Rhaenys will find out that Laenor's alive, and do you think B, that we'll see Laenor again? 2 different questions as part of Mora's question there.
I don't know. To an extent, I'm here for the ride. Like, I personally don't think, if anyone finds out, it could be Corlys. I don't think Rhaenys lives long enough for her to find out. And I think, we were talking about tragedy. That's part of it. There's also, I think, a much more strained relationship between Corlys and Laenor, which could make it more interesting if he's the one who finds out, right? Because Corlys kind of pushes Laenor right into this marriage and also didn't want to see his son for who he was.
That's true.
We kind of went back and forth on the cast this week about it, and we spawned a little tinfoil that since we know he went east and disappeared to go fight, right? And to go live a life, right? To live. What if, and I don't think this is going to happen at all, but what if Corlys accidentally, tragically, they, die? He kills him in the Stepstones fighting.
Whoa.
I don't think it's going to happen, but what if?
Bail the Bard in
Probably
reverse
not.
or something.
Yeah.
I feel like if that
something
was,
really tragic.
Yeah, I feel like if that had happened, we would have seen it.
Wow.
Whereas I'm still hoping that maybe he did in the Stepstones run into Laenor and that he's gonna wake up and be like, well, I also saw my son, or that seems a little contrived perhaps, but I really just want Corlys and Rhaenys to, or at least I want them to know that he's alive very much. So had to get your take on that.
I hope she gets to learn it before she dies.
Yeah.
That would be nice, because especially with some of the stuff in the last episode about the stranger and taking everything from her, and how she's fearless, how she faces her own death.
Yeah.
I love that. And I do think too, I personally, I think it'll realistically be an off-screen event, and maybe we'll just see Sea Smoke rise up in despair, just like how Dreamfire was said to after Helaena goes, and it'll just be mournful. Maybe you'll hear it on Driftmark and in one-off scene, and you'll just know that's what it is.
And then they'll be like, okay, now we can find a new writer for him.
And
anyone know an Adam?
And I'll say it again here that I do have my hopes up that they just really set up Recalio Rendoon to me. With Laenor bringing up Recalio, I really think there's a chance to me that they want a man on the ground perspective of meeting Recalio, and we see Laenor meet Recalio, which deals a lot with queerness and because I think it really plays well into Laenor and Carl as characters. So I've gone on about that in the podcast before, but that's really what I'm trying to get people to be like, yeah, I do think we'll see Laenor with Recalio, because that's what I want. I mean, now I love it.
I'm obsessed with this.
I really want it.
Yeah, I think I remember you discussing
I've been pushing it a bunch. I'm trying to manifest it. I'm like, if they didn't plan it, maybe they'll
hear about it.
Like,
that's a great idea. Recall Laenor. What's their ship name?
Yeah, right?
Recalinor.
Recalinor.
Yeah.
Laendoon.
It's a polyamorous thing. You got to throw Carl in there too. Recarl Laenor.
Recarlio.
Recarlinor.
This is too hard. Grack shipping.
Well, bringing it back to this episode, it looks like either the entire episode or almost the entire episode will take place in King's Landing, but not just the Red Keep, which is often what that effectively means, at least in this show, but also in the first run. A lot of times King's Landing means the Red Keep. But we're going to get alleys and streets, some sort of underground fighting pit, I guess, the Dragon Pit, so a couple of pits, and the Grand Sept and other places, maybe some bar or tavern that looks like Mysaria is in. Anyway, real quick, a few things from last time. some foreshadowing, some little wink moments that we can't talk about on Mondays. Rhaenyra saying, I'll return on Dragonback, saying I'll be back, I'm coming back to hang out, but no, she's not coming back just to hang out next time on Dragonback, is she?
No.
Nope. Not one bit. It's honestly, I really found that so sad too.
Yeah.
So sweet and bittersweet. I'll come back. And it's interesting politically, right? That she's like, no, I will not be bringing my children back because this is a viper's pit, but I personally will come back for my father and for you and the love I once bore for you and the love I bear for him. I will come back for that. And it's not going to be with love when she returns, probably.
Yeah.
And I guess this is how they're doing the timing, which is clever. We'll talk about the potential impact on her pregnancy a little later, but the idea that this has just happened right when she leaves. So it's not, it is a coincidence. It's not engineered. There's no poison as is suggested in Fire and Blood. It's just a good luck for the Greens, I guess, in terms of their timing and how it all worked out.
Yeah.
We got a little God's Eye foreshadowing there, didn't we? With Damon and Aemond staring at each other for a minute there. Or just general Damon, Aemond, not just the God's Eye, but...
I love all the M&M memes that are coming out of
Slim Shady.
That one, and then the stand one that this gray area also posted. They're all so hilarious.
Yeah, it does. It's an endless amount of comedy, despite the insane amount of tension between these characters. But yeah, I like how they're doing it. Both actors are really well cast. I think we're in for a treat, despite how gruesome.
Oh my gosh. Go. Nephews. I was in love as soon as that happened. I was like, this is my new favorite. I did. It's funny because we had a primer series, Unleash the D, when Eliana was out of town this summer, that I did, where I just had friends on to hang out and chat about the upcoming House of the Dragon and Fire and Blood and what they're looking forward to. And one of the episodes we joked I was going to become a big Aemond fan, and it was a joke. I never saw myself becoming an Aemond fan, and now I'm a complete Aemond fan. He's a blast. He's so villainous and comical, and but you can also at the same time kind of see why he is the way he is. Young Aemond, Leo, he did such a great job, and great. Now Ewan is doing an awesome job too.
Yeah, I think you see this emotional core to him too, which is I think what's crucial when it comes to Damon for me as well, which is that they are these anime villain, as people say, type characters where they seem so over the top, but you still see a gooey soft core within them with seeing young Aemond and his relationship with his mother, or seeing Damon and his relationship with Viserys. There's still some depth to them.
You see history repeating itself too, of course, which we're always keen to point out with the Aemond, the second son, his brothers, maybe not and this it's a lot more apparent that this brother's not cut out to be king. And they need some help, but similar kind of circumstances in that sense as well. All right, next point here. The Helaena prophecy, beware the beast beneath the boards. At the time we recorded, we didn't really know what that meant. No one really seemed to. Now there's been some time has passed. There's a few ideas have come out. I'll ask if you guys have a different idea, but the best theory I've heard to this point is that it's a reference to the scorpion bolt that will shoot down Vermax and thus kill Jace, which the scorpion being the shipboards, the planks on a ship,
and she's
it'll be fired from a ship
right near Jace.
Apparently, if I remember correctly, it's right after Jace's toast too, and pretty much everything she's said has been some kind of warning about violence coming. At least it seems that way. And well, first of all, what do y'all think of that idea of it being the scorpion? Does that register with you?
I love that. That's horrible.
That's
the worst thing I've ever heard. How could you kill Robb Stark in front of me Jace in front of me like this? I can't do this a second time.
Oh my gosh.
That does make sense, because I was thinking boards, ship boards, and that was kind of, we weren't sure on this one.
Yeah.
We've had a couple thoughts on the other ones that we kind of understood, I think, or we kind of were tying some things together. One of our patrons, they said something about how the sideboard that has bread and salt on it, and almost guessed right, and kind of had the idea of the beast beneath the boards being Storm's End and guessed right, which I like that too, but I really like this scorpion theory that all 3 dreams are kind of bug oriented. That's smart.
Yeah. Shout out to Christina K for that one, the bug oriented, and which leads me to thinking maybe there'll be a connection with the White Worm. With her.
Oh.
Or
really
Larry Strong, who's got his Firefly.
Yeah.
So there's these like bug things around that maybe that's what we should be thinking about.
Oh, get those bugs, Cat.
Yeah. So that's something to think about for sure. Yeah. So millipede, spider, scorpion, maybe worm, maybe firefly. Things are coming. So I'm definitely on the lookout for what Helena's going to say today. I'm thinking we won't get anything from her on the following week because that might be very Dragonstone focused. We may not even see her. But it's very interesting what they've done with her.
Yeah, we will see at least a little bit of her in this episode as we see where we'll have that still of her doing needlepoint. So.
There's definitely things she could comment on that are coming. Yeah. So
I kind of love that it seems to be bottle episodes, right? Like maybe, I'm not sure on the finale, but this one obviously seems to be bottle episode, one location, one place, one setting, King's Landing and Red Keep, etc. in totality. But then I'm wondering if the last episode will be bottle episode at all.
Yeah.
In comparison,
the finale is the Black the Black Queen.
Yeah.
So it could
green
just
episode,
be,
black episode.
Yeah, sounds like it. It sounds like what they're setting up, certainly.
And I wonder if that's something that they'll do in future seasons, if like that'll be pretty standard. Like obviously Game of Thrones, they did do that on occasion where everything is set in one locale, and sometimes that just happened where we weren't in Essos at all that episode, but we were still jumping around Westeros because we weren't in, there was no Dany or something. So I'm curious who will be who will be focused on the most, I suppose, in season 2. Like who will we always see every episode, if anyone, I guess.
I wonder any quick thoughts on what she might be needle pointing there? I'm thinking just something in memory of her father. That seems like a pretty straightforward guess.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe she's taken to put her prophecies in needle instead. Maybe she's method needle pointing. Kind of like reminds me of Heroes with what's his face with the paintings.
Yeah, I forgot that character's name.
Yeah, Isaac. Isaac. Oh, Isaac the Binding. Anyways, yes. Prophecy and painting, or paint by numbers by prophecy. I don't know.
Everyone has a hobby, like that's how they're thinking about it, right?
Yeah, Damon.
I mean, well, Viserys, right? They're putting a lot of thought of like, what do these people like to do in their spare time? And so is like needlepoint one of her hobbies also?
Okay,
she's just making like her bug fan art.
Yeah, I know. I'm picturing that Alicent's like, oh, thank God that I managed to move her to a more normal hobby. She's not messing with her bugs anymore. She's just doing needlepoint
of bugs. Yeah, she's needlepoint
bugs. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This is definitely a step up from.
It reminds me of some of that embroidery from the main series from Game of Thrones that was done. Cersei had a lot of those crazy kind of bug or birds applique, and other characters had bugs that were appliqued. Sansa had dragonflies at one point that were super appliqued. Maybe she's making bugs to put on her dresses. Nice. She's like, Mom said I can't have bugs anymore because I have to be a queen now.
She's making patches. I know, right? She's actually queen. I wonder if how's that weighing on her? What she's thinking about that? Like Aegon doesn't want it, but I doubt she does either.
Yeah, is she gonna get a nice crown too? We're gonna see her all dressed up in some finery.
She gets to be coroned as well.
I love her so much.
Yeah. She must be protected at all costs. I'm afraid we can't afford that cost though.
It's a fixed timeline, my friend. Yes. Unless they Laenor her.
Yeah, hey, you never know. Yeah, she's Helaena. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like right, because there's like I guess they could, but it does lead to riots because everyone literally everyone loves Helaena, even the small folk.
They kind of already foreshadowed it, like with Alicent
by the window.
What's that word where you bounce on a baby? Dandling? What is that word?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know baby stuff.
No one here has a baby.
Yeah.
Just support the neck. That's what I know.
Support the neck. So yeah.
I'm thinking of like those CPR videos with and they're like, baby, are you okay? And I'm like, the baby cannot speak. I don't know if you watch those videos like in your health classes, like, baby, are you okay?
Are you asking a baby to converse with you? Yeah.
And the baby's supposed to be choking, maybe?
I'm worried about you.
Well, everyone should be worried that I clearly did not internalize CPR.
I would be worried if the baby goes, yes.
Yeah, then you really should worry. Yes, I'm fine. Stop banging on my back. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's what Helaena was doing back then already. She was already doing that at that age. I did wonder, someone did actually have a clever idea there, that the reason Helaena was a troublesome baby was because she's having dreams already, which is sad but fitting, you know? So, I mean, babies are already, you know, apparently they sleep when they want, and but hey, it fits. So let's have a quote from the books here to mark the spot where Viserys dies. It's Shay, you want to read this?
Yeah. Then Viserys of House Targaryen, the first of his name, king of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, lord of the Seven Kingdoms, and protector of the realm, closed his eyes and went to sleep. He never woke. He was 52 years old and had reigned over most of Westeros for 26 years. Then the storm broke, and the dragons danced.
So we got the storm in the show. They included the storm. That was cool of them to have the rain building throughout the episode. And unfortunately, we didn't get the kids coming to talk to Viserys. Instead, we had Alicent, which was still a good scene, but I think some of us were kind of hoping we'd get that Helaena with the kids as his final moment.
I was just really hoping for a scene with Viserys and his green children, I think.
His
like any
grandkids,
scene.
yeah.
Any, his regular
other
kids.
grandkids, yeah.
Not his I mean,
just his
the
kids.
grandkids would be cool too, but just his kids. We didn't even get a real scene with Viserys and Helaena, or Viserys and none of them, really.
That's true.
Like, a little bit with
He just doesn't
Viserys
care
and
about
Aegon.
them.
Yeah, you know.
Dandel, that's the
He
word.
said
literally-
Okay, you got it.
He literally said my only child, and it was like, dang, Viserys.
Yeah.
You got like 3 other kids right there, grandkids.
And
He said my
other,
only
yeah, it's like,
child.
dude, you are wow. Yeah, sorry, man.
But also, when I was rereading like those scenes, I was like, maybe it's a good thing, because like in the book, I was like, it's honestly amazing Maelor makes it to the age he does, because Viserys gives his little pearl ring to toddler Maelor, and I'm like, this is a fucking choking hazard. What are you doing?
Don't give a little kid a
He
pearl
doesn't.
ring.
He doesn't care about those kids either. So
Screw those kids. So you all have added some great notes here, and I appreciate the type of notes here, because this is a long-running weakness of mine that I've pointed out a few times, is I don't know Shakespeare hardly at all. And it's funny, the other day I was thinking about tweeting, I don't know what Shakespearean means. I use the word because it's got a context. It's like, to me, it's like tragic but high quality. That's like as far as I can go with the definition. I'm like, yeah, that's Shakespearean, sure. And I just been kind of realized, like, I need to like own up to the fact that I'm kind of just using this word because I get the gist, but I don't really know what it means. So
I'll just send you this file.
Yeah,
I'll
so
just send
you-
this A.C. Bradley's book, Shakespearean Tragedy, and you can read it.
So like people were talking, we did this tribute to Viserys, and like all throughout the season and before the season, people were like, oh, his performance is so Shakespearean. Patty Considine pulled off this Shakespearean portrayal of Viserys. I'm like,
Sure.
yeah, yes. So
Speak to us about this.
So you all take it away for a minute here on these notes you've added and how this applies, and maybe add some real thought to this rather than my dancing around it for a long time.
Dancing?
Dancing, So at least
The dance?
I was in the right vibe at least.
Yeah, we didn't have to. I kind of put this here just in case, because I know that there's a lot of discussion as to, that last scene, right? Like, and the miscommunication that occurs between Alicent and Viserys. And people talk about how Patty Considine did, like, as you said, a Shakespearean performance. It's something that George has been very clear to say, like, when he's discussing Patty's performance. And while I do have, like, I want to see how things shake out first, right? Before I like say, oh, I didn't even mean that one. Oh,
Shake your spear.
that is what's going to happen probably next week.
There's
but I
gonna
want
be
to see
some
how
spear
that goes before I like pass too much judgment on the usage of the prophecy and that miscommunication. It's a huge, like, very soap opera-y turn, but at the same time, Shakespeare was very much the soap operas of his time, right? Like, it was, everyone came together to watch these performances, because also we didn't have television. So it was these were the kinds of stories that people would go to. And Shakespearean tragedy has a lot of like different elements that define it and that also differentiate it from things like Greek tragedy. All of these have their own different like aspects. But when we're talking about tragedy, it's not just something that's sad. Shakespearean tragedy is mostly interested in the sort of downfall of someone of very high, great stature, people who, and great being like, you know, like these larger than life kind of characters. And there are a couple of different elements that lead to that tragedy, but ultimately it is about them being conflicted, right? And we see that Paddy has really brought that to his performance of Viserys, someone who is very loving, but also deeply flawed, right? He's not a strong ruler, and he's stricken with grief as Paddy has, we're on a first name basis, revealed in his
coming over for tea
interviews.
Later, yeah.
But in regards to this last scene, whether or not you like the way that it goes, that miscommunication, I think that after seeing the behind the scenes right after the episode and them talking about this being something that they felt was a decision to make Viserys and that scene tragic, right? And again, speaking about it within the formal confines of the Shakespearean tragedy genre, it is a well done or well executed way of doing that genre, which a big part of Shakespearean tragedy involves something called an influential accident. And AC Bradley talks about it. I'm just going to read aloud this quote. I'm sorry, I've just been talking a lot.
No,
but
we love
It's good stuff.
Bradley says, chance or accident here will be found to mean any occurrence, not supernatural, of course, which enters the dramatic sequence neither from the agency of a character nor from the obvious surrounding circumstances. It may be called an accident in the sense that Romeo never got the friar's message about the potion, and that Juliet did not awake from her long sleep a minute sooner. An accident that Edgar arrived at the prison just too late to save Cordelia's life. An accident that Desdemona dropped her handkerchief at the most fatal of moments. An accident that the pirate ship attacked Hamlet's ship so that he was able to return forthwith to Denmark. So it's because accidents are a fact of life, right? And this does kind of come from the agency of a character with Viserys, but that's also because I think that's a very defining factor of George's work, right? That there is an element of that character motivation and really imbuing that into the things that he writes. But it is an accident at the end of the day and sets forth this dance, this series of motions, or it sets in motion all of this war.
The storm.
Yeah.
That was very well said.
Yeah, that was very well
I'm
said.
guessing you now feel like you could speak a little more confidently.
Oh, I'm an expert now. Yeah.
Shakespearean tragedy.
I can shake my spear as well as anyone now.
No, that book actually sounds
What are you
very.
talking about?
Oops, wait, that's a bad euphemism.
I hope this makes you think about the way
Iron
you are.
Rod.
Are you thinking about the way you are in our podcast? This is the cautionary tale, Eliana.
Yeah, no, I think
With
we
your
can also
puns,
tell
man.
that Aziz never took drama class or theater class in high school or anything like that, perhaps.
Or he did and didn't pay attention.
oh, perhaps
something
maybe
like
that.
that. I don't remember, which shows you, yeah, I definitely didn't pay attention.
You know what? That's one great thing about a lot of people in this community, though, is we all have certain parts that we love the most about A Song of Ice and Fire, about the shows, about the books, the different things in it, and we all kind of have a masterclass of certain things that we love, right? So Eliana can bring that tragedy, but Aziz, you're so strong in so many other, like, you honestly don't, this is good that you're not strong on that. Like, you don't deserve to be. You're good at everything else.
He's not a strong boy.
He's not a strong boy.
He's not one of our strong
You're
nephews.
stronger on other things, and I love it. You shouldn't
Thank
have
you
all
very
that
much.
power,
Thank you
is
very
what I'm
much.
saying.
All right. Y'all are too kind. Kizzy sends a super chat, says, love the channel. The show's depiction of Rhaenys and the Sea Snake losing their children was very difficult to watch, as I've also suffered such a loss. The grief the parents exhibited appeared very realistic. Kudos to those two. Well, Kizzy, thank you for your courage in sharing that with us. That is indescribable. And I'm glad it was done well. I can't speak to the authenticity of that personally. It seemed really good, but, you know, your opinion weighs a lot heavier here.
Yeah, I'll be super curious to see how it continues to play out in their arcs, because I don't think that's the sort of thing that, Rhaenys had a conversation with Rhaenyra and now they're past it. I think this is the sort of thing that should come up in conversation after conversation after conversation with those two.
Maybe not quite as heavily as Viserys thinking about Emma all the time, but maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It brings a lot of that grief from like Jaehaerys and Alicent as you see what they suffer and their losses. It brings a lot of that grief in, and we'll talk a lot more later, I think, as we get to some of the Rhaenys talk. I think there's we're going to talk about her for a bit later, because it's really compelling. Even by omission, I'm appreciating what the show's doing by the stuff they're not showing us. For Rhaenys and Corlys to have been gone from court, their absence was louder, right? Of course, I would have loved delicate scenes of like everything in their going-ons and lives, but I understand storytelling medium for TV. You only have so many minutes and you got to cut stuff. But I think the omission of them and now their re-entrance and how important they're about to be to the plot is speaking volumes.
Yeah, very well said. So we have this shot here. Our next section is entitled, "The King is Dead, Don't Tell." In Fire and Blood, of course, they conceal the king's death for a little while. It's not clear whether they'll do that for as long here. It appears they'll be somewhat down low on it because we see the servants being put in prison. So that's a clue. But other than that, we're not really sure how this is going to be handled. But this shot with all the candles, it's a very moving homage here to him. And it looks like Alicent is doing more than just her duty. You know, that's always been kind of an interesting gray area for her. She does seem to legitimately care about Viserys, even if she wasn't, attracted to him necessarily. She does seem to care about him, and he's the father of her children and all that. What do y'all think about this moment?
This shot from the
or just this general the shot and the moment.
Alicent reflecting on Viserys' death, I suppose, in general, all that. Close that.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting with all the candles around, because for me it actually reminds me of then the scene of before young Alicent and young Rhaenyra praying together, surrounded by all those candles, mourning Emma. And I'm kind of like wondering, are we going to see kind of callbacks to that, like maybe any reminiscing about that in any way, or if that'll be like running through Olivia's performance, because I think they've done a really good job of kind of doing these like subtle character acting.
Yeah, especially with the religious aspect. There was an interview behind the scenes you had brought up. It was with Emily Carey, I think, about Emily Carey and Rhys Ifans had kind of worked out a backstory for Alicent since they had time and space to play with how they wanted to play the characters, and had said that Alicent's mother was very religious. So in the jump, you can really see that played upon, in that she's really gone all in on the faith and having something to protect her and something to turn to, somewhere to put that into. So that's really interesting now with Viserys gone too, as a kind of a guiding beacon.
Yeah.
I mean, she's lost. The whole thing is that Viserys, while his indecision and acedia affected the entire realm, right, throughout all of this, like, he was also the anchor that everyone was milling about, and we were all just waiting in the pool, just waiting, our legs kicking, what's going to happen, and now it's over, and that anchor is gone. Someone in the chat had just said, I want to say it was Kenny Market said, reason's about to be thrown out of the window, can't wait for chaos, which, like, I'm a big believer in the show. I want all of them to fight. I'm not team black or team green really in the end. Like, I just like when all the girls are fighting. Like, let's fight.
Basically, it sounds like you're team chaos, which means you're team Littlefinger, is what I'm hearing.
All right, you put that away.
Your sigil is a ladder.
Oh my God.
A ladder with rungs that are kind of uneven, and just anyway.
Yeah, I am happy to see Alicent like getting some of this, though. Like, some of this, I think it's going to be a very mixed episode for her, right? Yeah. Like, in general, because she's now the crux. A lot of that power is going to pass to her.
And we saw last episode she was a little reluctant, right? Which I thought was interesting. Like, she wasn't like excited. She wasn't like, all right, let's do this. Like Otto's kind of like that, but she's like,
something that I have seen many times over the years, and especially during this House of the Dragon season, has been Black stans have been like those like really hardcore Team Black fans who have been listed the things Alicent has done that were terrible. And one of the most common things that people name is Alicent letting Viserys rot for, a week, right? Like, that is a pretty hated thing that she did. I personally
Doesn't seem that
bad to me, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen like an angry tweet where they're like, and Alicent, she just let him run. Like they're big mad about it. So I'm super curious how that's going to play out as like this despicable thing that she did. Whereas like, to me, it was a very understandable thing to do. Like as much as like the general usurpation is the bigger issue, not the body part, I guess.
Yeah.
I always saw the body part less of a, and I guess they also have been able to do this through the acting of Viserys and like the leprosy aspect. I always saw the rotting of the body as more meant to be like this sort of metaphor for the rotting and what's happening to the kingdom.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
He was well rotted before he died. Yeah.
Well, to that same like thought, Ashaya, too, I think you're onto something there, because Alicent's reluctance in the last episode and Rhaenyra, it's interesting that it is being played a little softer in that both Alicent and Rhaenyra don't want it to come to war. Like you can almost tell they're, even at the end, Rhaenyra, instead of being like, wow, your sons are assholes, instead of saying that out loud, she said to her, yes, you're right, and there is a place in my heart that we could make this work now for our common interests, and we should. And she didn't want to go back to King's Landing. I mean, she was content with her family to stay happy forever on Dragonstone if she really could. But again, back to that crux of Viserys, right? Everything rotating around him. And now they have no choice. And now people are going to be pressing them to war on all sides. So to me, the 7 days waiting is more like, how long can I put it off until the realm gets torn apart by dragons?
Yeah. And they took out a few of the like premeditated aspects of this. Like there's definitely no hint that she poisoned him, like not even the slightest shred of evidence or hint of that. And there's no evidence, at least so far, that she was prepared for this, like had prepped the servants, don't tell anyone, come directly to me. There's none of that yet either. Maybe we'll see that in the next episode, but I don't think so. It doesn't seem like that was set up. So that is some of the premeditated stuff is, I think, part of the negativity. I mean, there's plenty of other things, but that taking that away, I think definitely puts Alicent more into a gray area, which is good, rather than making her just a villain is not quite as interesting. But yeah, talking about people being put in prison, it was smart of them to develop a character that we recognize amongst the servants, so that we see her prominently in this trailer being in prison. We say, that's Talia. That's Talia being put in jail with the other servants, which we discussed this a little bit last time. That in itself is a clue. If you're Mysaria, you're getting regular reports from Talia, and then she doesn't show up all of a sudden, and then just all the other stuff is kind of weird around, like news coming out of the keep is a little odd. Everybody knows the king's on his deathbed. Like, I think Mysaria could probably figure it out, or at least have a reasonable guess. So anyway, what do y'all think about the Talia prison and just in general, how this affects the outcome here?
With the twist with her working for Mysaria, I don't know. I think it's interesting, and also because it seems like there's a couple of shots with her, even with like that you were talking about with children.
Yeah, the children.
Yeah, there's a shot, if you pay attention in that trailer, if you've been watching the trailer at 0.25x like I have 4 times a day.
It's a fascinating experience. She made me do it. And I was like, okay.
I did. I was like, come on, Eliana, get with it. But I like to watch them a little slow-mo just to see, because they give away so much of these shots. There's so much. And if you do that, you can see there's a small blonde child next to Talia, a small boy. And it makes me wonder if that could be Jaehaerys. Like, what if Jaehaerys was one of the little, Helena's son saw his granddad decomposing on accident, and that could also bring some tension to Alicent. Like, I have to jail my own grandkid. Sorry, Helaena. I know I'm about to crown you and all, but sorry.
Now, my thinking on this child, I want to see those kids. My thinking on this child is if it relates to the voiceover that Laris was saying, which is, I found out something you should know, which maybe they're just playing misdirection, but I'm thinking this is one of Aegon's bastards, which of course we discussed this possibility as well, with it maybe being Damon or something like that.
Yeah.
So a lot of possibilities here. Those are all, I think, valid.
Well, and
ideas.
This is specifically in that shot of Talia.
Yeah,
that kid
that's true.
With her. Yeah, that's it. It looks a little older than a baby too.
You're right.
Looks to be like I want to say like 3-4. somewhere in there. I'm not really good at kid
We are
ages. I'm
not
sorry.
good at
We're not.
child development.
I can't.
We don't even know Dan.
Someone else in the chat, please chime in. Let us know how old, if you have watched the trailer at this
Yeah.
slowness. But it's just for a shot. He's in a red shirt and he has like
Oh.
soft, not
That
pale
child. Yes,
hair,
I have
but
the
that
wrong
child. Yeah,
on
that's what I'm
screen.
sorry. I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
Yeah. The actual shot. Gaiman, I think it might be Gaiman. We're going to talk about that, I think, soon, because
The
I would
other
bet
kid?
my
Other
toes.
child.
I would bet Jaehaerys' sixth toe that's Gaiman.
I'm like, I feel like it probably is Gaiman, but we talked about it before the stream even, but I'm concerned that if it is Gaiman, that they're not setting up Essie and Sylvena Sand, which anyone who listens to our show knows I'm a huge fan of.
Yes.
Like, I'm not Team Black, I'm not Team Green, I'm Team Gaiman Pale Hair, but specifically Sylvena and Essie, who are very progressively minded women. And so it's possible to me that we could get Gaiman set up and not actually meet his parents, maybe, like, until a season later. But, like, maybe Aegon just has had multiple bastards. Like, that also makes sense to me.
He surely has. Yeah, I would think.
But, like, I like to think that they realize that it's not young Gaiman that makes Gaiman popular, but is his lesbian mothers. Like, I like to think that
And their
like,
policies.
and their policies, like, I think that they'll keep them. And, like, so my point is that even if we don't meet Gaiman's parents, his mothers in this episode, maybe I'll still have hope. I guess.
We'll see. We'll see.
I'm concerned.
We're getting a little ahead of ourselves worrying about Gaiman right now. But I agree. I want to see him. I'm a little nervous that they'll change it. But let's see. So I wonder when Alicent says he told me in the trailer line, she says he told me he wished for Aegon to be king. Who's she talking to there? I wonder. Like, Otto's already on board. She doesn't have to tell her dad that. He's like, yeah, I know. That's what I want. Criston Cole? Larys? Those are the two that I think are most likely. Telling Criston, just confiding in him because he's just there. But Larys is the one she seems to talk to. But I'm not sure she still confides in Larys after... Before we haven't seen them like have a moment together after his... Yeah, I killed my dad and my brother for you. And she was pretty horrified about that. So I'm not sure. I don't know that she's been as close to him since then. And maybe we'll find that out. And they all also changed Larys' role a little bit from book to show in that he's not on the council. There's no like official Master of Whispers. He's more like her Master of Whispers at this point. That may change, but to this point, obviously it hasn't. So any takes on that, or is that just kind of a wait and see thing?
The one thing I will say is I hope it's not Otto, because there's something about that Alicent has not given Otto like any of this carnal information she knows, right? Like you were saying to me earlier offline, Rhaenyra and Criston. I don't think she's told Otto about that, right? Like that's a secret she has kept very close to herself. So I think that gives her a step up in power, right? Because her father has always held the cards for her life in his hands, and now she has started to try to hold that. And it wouldn't surprise me if it was Criston or Larry's. I do think there might be some power plays for Alicent to gain. Now, her actions might not be great from it, but to gain some agency for once over her life in this episode.
Yeah,
that's a good
and I
point.
think that's what we're gonna see her doing, right? Like her hair is like loose, right? It's during that, and she says it in this way that feels very, it feels very religious. Like she uses the same tone that like my mom uses when she talks about God, and, and I was like, ugh. But yeah. So I imagine she might be just telling the whole small council or something.
Yeah,
like they've been, I don't know, there for a while, and I'll talk about hair in a bit. But
that makes sense. That's very possible. Yeah. Well, we'll see about that. So there's a line from the books that's somewhat applicable here. No ravens flew that night. No bells rang. Those servants who knew of the king's passing were sent to the dungeon. So that third sentence, apparently we're getting that. The ravens will be delayed. The bells didn't ring. The bells do ring in the trailer, so we're getting the bells ringing at some point in this episode. I'm guessing just the delay will be shorter. It's actually not that long in the books. They make it sound like it's really long, but it's only 7 days. They're like, people aren't getting letters. They're wondering where people are, but it had only been 7 days, which is, I always thought it was a little strange that people were worried about. I haven't heard from Blankety Blanken, who lives half a continent away in 7 days. Like, that's like, you guys communicate by Raven. You probably wouldn't have anyway. So regardless, that makes sense. It's TV show compressing things a little bit, but we'll see how they handle it. Whether it's the full subterfuge or just more light subterfuge. We'll just kind of keep this news from spilling out.
I wonder then, is this episode a 7-day? Is it supposed to be over a week?
Yeah.
What's the time span of the
Interesting.
episode? I think we might see several events unfold, and maybe it'll be over a few different days of the week.
You're right.
The
trailer
that could
makes
be interesting.
The trailer kind of makes it seem like it plays out really quickly, but the trailers can be very misleading.
Yeah, it's pretty
As
easy
you
for them
can
to
do
just
it
like
very quickly.
cut to someone in prison and like the sun pass. Like it's easy to
Yeah.
show
That's a
the
great point.
audience
Yeah.
that time is passing for someone, and they're like, show Rhaenys locked in her room for a full day or something, and she's like stir crazy or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that'd be fun.
Marlise says, another super chat says, to Aziz, our Queen of Shea, Casanova, and Girls Gone Canon, thoroughly enjoying this discussion. Well, thank you, Maura. Yes, we did have a quick, brief Casanova sighting.
Twice.
Did we have two? brief
Casanova
He gave
cameo.
twice, yeah. He did.
He is trying to get in. He's trying to get on screen. He likes to get attention. You know, he figures attention from one person is good. Why not get attention from a few hundred? What?
Easy.
For my peoples sends a super chat, says tragic majesty. I get it now, George. Excellent performance. Yeah, that's referring to George telling us all in advance. He had seen, even George hadn't seen the final episode when he made these comments, which Patty Considine isn't in episode 10, so that makes sense. George has been hyping this up, like his favorite performer apparently was Patty Considine. He said Shakespearean, tragic, majesty, all that. Yeah. Well, we get it now. We do get it. We kind of already did, but episode 8 was the peak.
But not Unwin Peak.
Not on
Thank God.
No, we do not get him. I don't get him at all. Yeah. That's a
But yeah, I'm a Patty stan now. We might watch Peaky Blinders. Oh, speaking of
Oh,
Peaky,
yeah.
we're gonna start Peaky Blinders soon.
Nice. Very
Also because we
cool.
love Cillian Murphy, so
yeah, he's good.
The cheeks, I mean, you could
Mhm.
murder
Yeah.
someone with those
He
cheekbones.
could play
He could be
Aemon's.
Targaryen.
Yeah, he could play Aemon's brother easily.
Oh.
We actually were talking. I would love to see him as Damon Blackfire.
Oh,
Let
yeah,
that
yeah.
one rest.
Yeah.
all
there
Damons and Aemons have like cheekbones. That
Yeah.
can be like the thing.
Hey,
He's not like unmuscled.
That's
I
true.
realized when I was looking pictures up to specifically have this opinion the other
You
day.
could add a few if need be.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the subject and on the topic of like Aemond and Damon and like their long face with the cheekbones, I actually really feel that that they look a lot like Viserys and Otto, respectively. Like
Yeah.
that Aemond, they
Yeah.
both have very long faces,
Oh,
and like I
interesting.
feel like a young Otto
Yeah.
and a young Viserys. Like, I
I
can
think
see,
Rhaenys has that look too.
yeah, a little
She has
bit
a
as
long
well.
face and
Long,
her
yeah.
blonde,
Yeah, that's
super
true,
long,
that's true.
like
A lot
straight
of
blonde
long.
hair.
Huh.
Yeah, she has that kind of Aemond. Aemond has her hair really. So
There you go.
the council chamber is our next section here. Otto says the door remains shut until we finish our business. That's, if you read Fire and Blood, you're pretty clear what's going on there. They're trying to decide just how to pull off this usurpation that they have been planning for a while. Yeah, all these shots around there. What is this comment y'all wrote here about 12 angry men?
Oh, that was a fantasy of mine that I had when the season was starting, and before we like saw the trailer for episode 9. Clearly, they're going to like look at other stuff in King's Landing, as we've been discussing. They leave the palace, but I had a fantasy. I was like, what if they did the Green Council, like a 12 angry men, like purely drama within this one room, like
Ooh,
episode.
True
that
bottle
would have been
episode.
cool.
That would
Yeah.
be really nuts.
That would've
but
been
they
really
have contracts to
ambitious.
fulfill.
Yeah, it would have been
And
ambitious.
storytelling they
but I
have to
just-
come up with.
That was a dream.
So when you're reading Fire and Blood, there's a lot of times where the narrative pauses for a minute to just reiterate that the sources don't agree on everything. And it happens several times, right? Because there's moments where it's particularly important to remind us of that. Certain particular events are particularly uncertain, and this is one of them. In Fire and Blood, there's a big old warning about this one. It's actually not just a warning. It favors Grand Maester Munkin's version of events because Munkin used Orwell's reports, and Orwell's there. He's present in the room, but there's a reason to even doubt Orwell because Orwell's account is a confession and like, yeah, I was there and I was trying to do the right thing sort of account. So even, yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, here is a brief quote to describe that. Shea?
Mm-hmm. One moment. Here we are. Though Munkin's exhaustive history was not written until a generation later and drew on many different sorts of materials, including Maester's chronicles, memoirs, steward's records, and interviews with 147 surviving witnesses to the great events of these times, his account of the inner workings of the court relies upon the confessions of Grand Maester Orwell as set down before his execution. Unlike Mushroom and Septon Eustace, whose versions derive from rumors, hearsay, and family legend, the Grand Maester was present at the meeting and took part in the council's deliberations and decisions, though it must be recognized that at the time he wrote, Orwyle was most anxious to show himself in a favorable light and absolve himself of any blame for what was to follow. Munkins' true-telling, therefore, paints his predecessor in perhaps too favorable a light.
For example, in his accounting, he says, first thing I did was suggest we send condolences to Rhaenyra and prepare for her coronation. That was the first thing I said.
Yeah.
And Orwyle's been pretty quiet.
Sure.
I don't really imagine him speaking up right there and just saying that.
Yeah, the Grand
Maester's
Maester's usually not the loudest guy in council anyway. It's like he seems to always kind of be like the one who's the lower ranked guy there. I don't know. Yeah, I totally agree. It doesn't seem like...
Isn't that the fun part of, like, thankfully most of those people are now dead, so no one can fact check him. He's like, let me just soften this history real quick before I put it down in ink and quill. Let me just...
So this kind of harkens back to episode 1 a little bit, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah, because like one of the things that Otto said, he like cuts him off and is like, "All this must needs wait," he declared, "until the question of succession is settled." And I'm like, oh, it's kind of like when Emma's body is just like barely even done, like I guess being burned or whatever. And Otto's like, okay, so let's talk about succession. And Viserys is like, holy shit, let me mourn for a second.
Yeah.
While you're traumatized.
And he's like, succession.
He's like, season 4, when?
Yeah. In Fire and Blood, Beesbury is the major objector, and the trailer shows him objecting very loudly and vociferously, but it also shows him dead on the table. It suggested he was either, in Fire and Blood, it suggested he was either in prison, thrown out where he died, or thrown out the window, which killed him, or killed in his chair. Looks like they went with option 3 there. Criston Cole has just killed him, presumably, and has now drawn his sword, presumably on Harold Westerling, who is the other Kingsguard in the room. Sigh. Now, in Fire and Blood, Cole has already been Lord Commander for like 15 years, so it feels like they just pivoted to this instead, where he's probably just going to kill Westerling in this moment and then become Lord Commander.
It's a much different way to be named Lord Commander.
Much different. That's a pretty substantial difference.
It's very different, really.
Which implies we're getting a little bit of Barristan in season 1 of Game of Thrones, where he's like, but these are the king's words, and instead of just kicking him out, like, well, you're out of here, Barristan, they're like, no, you're gonna die. Of course, maybe the Westerling lived somehow. Last week we made a mistake. We thought Westerling was on screen for the Black Queen episode. We thought we saw him in the room there, but we looked closer. No, that's not him. That's probably Stefan Darklin. So that's bad news for Westerling. He's probably dying this episode. Any
they did a really good job of introing him last episode. That was the second I saw. We're a subtitle family here. We're a subtitle family.
Same.
I don't know if you guys are, but there's just so much because HBO actually identifies who's speaking.
Yes.
Unless they do it incorrectly on the second episode, like that Joffrey Valerian. Yeah, that one got us. We were like, it's funny. Your partner was like, wait, what? I thought he wasn't there yet or not born yet or whatever. And we were like, no, they messed up. But they said Stefan Darklin just in time because I was wondering if Harold would be fulfilling that role or what was going to happen, but I expect he will die. Yeah. It's very sad because he does die by now. So
I guess, something they've done a pretty good job of also setting up in the previous episodes, right? Like, for example, in I guess it's 7. Sorry, I'm like, we're watching all these so fast, I'm like losing track of like which things occur where, but like Westerling having to like say, hold back Cole, right? Like, and like,
they have beef.
Yeah. There's clearly already friction going on, between them.
Yeah.
Oh, and especially with them all escaping to go do some coronating.
Coronating. I love the different ways we've turned that into a verb. When you go corone someone,
coronavirus.
Yeah, if you corone too many people, you might catch the coronavirus. Yeah. So
I hope not.
In Fire and Blood, Criston Cole's actually rather verbal about all this. He speaks up quite a bit. He says, "Seven save this realm if we seat a bastard on the Iron Throne," and of course he and other people repeat the standard Westerosi prejudice that all bastards are untrustworthy, so that fuels their fire. Then Criston says something pretty awful. He says, they will turn the Red Keep into a brothel. No man's daughter will be safe, nor any man's wife, even the boys. We know what Laenor was. So that's the even worse thing we hear from time to time, that gay people must all be pedophiles, right? Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So in the books, Laenor did like handsome young squires, but young is not boy, right? That's more of a like. Well, maybe he.
Well, he liked a little twink. I don't know.
Yeah,
but he's pretty young too.
Yeah, he's young too at that point.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is pretty unfair for Criston to say here, and gross. But
it was what we pointed to back after he had killed Joffrey Lonmouth, at the idea that there might be some simmering homophobia deep down, just, maybe not as much at that point, but that as you try to justify it to yourself, the fact that you killed this guy, you're like, oh, well, it was okay because he was maybe he wasn't as homophobic at that moment as he is now, that it's like calcified in himself.
And he laughed. Remember, he laughed when Alicent made that joke. It was like, oh, Laenor was off with his young squires. And Criston's like, oh. And Westerling looks at him like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop laughing. Yeah. So so the brothel connection is kind of interesting because, that they did set that up with Damon and Rhaenyra's outing. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably why, if they make that line, that's why he'll say it. He will say it if they take it verbatim from the books. Now you have a reason for it, because last time Rhaenyra ran out and went to a brothel and broke Criston's heart, how many years ago? 17, 16 years ago.
He still hasn't let it go.
Yeah, it's very emotional for him, but that's. Now you know why he might be like, oh, they're going to turn it into a brothel.
Yeah.
And he obviously has already used some very harsh language about the princess / now queen of the realm.
He really has. And isn't it very hypocritical? Look at this man they're trying to make king. Like, talk about turning people and turning things into a brothel. I mean, come on. Like, this is an actual rapist we're talking about. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So that's pretty bad. I mean, these folks are really just drinking their own Kool-Aid at this point, aren't they?
I'd like to know what Criston. I would like Criston to say something about Aegon's proclivities at some point, for him to have to try to be righteous in the face of that still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he maybe just won't go there.
Again, we've talked about it before. The idea that Criston is like the parental figure that Aegon's had for a long time, and so like.
Says a lot.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. No, you're right. I would like to see like what Criston thinks about all of that. I mean, we saw him interact with Aemond last episode, still fulfilling that role.
Yep.
But as you said, like, super hypocritical. But at the same time, like, it's funny, right? Because he's like saying, and I do think we'll get. I think we might get this line, but I don't know. But because Criston loves saying terrible things, apparently.
That's been set up.
But like, he's all like, no man's daughter will be safe, or any man's wife, and it's like, well, a lot of people's daughters and wives are already unsafe by virtue of like just the way that the world is set up in Westeros, right? Like, they're unsafe in the birthing bed, they're unsafe at home, they're unsafe from Aegon. But even in general, as we see throughout the main books, women and girls are unsafe in general. And I think that the show isn't shying away from that, right? Like, they're very explicit when they talk about the decisions that they make about how they're thinking about the way patriarchy manifests in a Westeros. And I do think like even this line makes that clear, right? The language is no man's daughter or any man's wife. It's about the possessiveness of like your property or whatever is unsafe if Rhaenyra is here, because, and also you have like that threat of, boys are, the fact that they think boys might be threatened or whatever because they're making stuff up, that's overturning that power structure, right? Not just in terms of the threat that Rhaenyra represents for like inheritance, but also the idea that like men and boys will no longer sit atop it. They're no longer guaranteed a safe, which is kind of ironic because you know what really makes men and boys unsafe? Plunging them into war.
Yeah, right? That's the least safe place for just about anyone to be, is war. Yeah. I mean, come on. It's pretty straightforward when you put it that way. It doesn't seem like it needs to be explained, but hey, these greens. But it's true though. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. And there's some of the other moves they make. I wonder if they'll do similar things. I'm guessing they probably will. Like, they're told to gather up all the black supporters who don't bend the knee and make them bend the knee. And if they don't, do them no violence unless they resist. And that's just told to Criston Cole. It's like, well, what's Criston Cole's definition of resisting, right? Like,
that's true.
You think of like modern policing, and it's like, what is resisting actually? Like, you can really have a lot of leeway with what counts as resisting. And Criston Cole, I feel like, especially if he's just killed Beesbury and Westerling, so that recurring Game of Thrones real world trope where once someone starts killing, it's like that's the mood they're in. They're like, more killing, so I don't know if his blood will be up or whatever phrase you prefer for that
So
concept.
we're thinking we're gonna see Lord Caswell killed.
Yeah,
right?
Lord Caswell, the one black supporter we've seen.
We're gonna see his head like chopped off or something like that.
Yeah, he's toast.
I'm imagining he might give
nice
us
man.
he is a nice man. He might give us a good speech too about it. Like, I swore an oath. I was in this room. I kneeled. I was looking at that one shot from the trailer where you can see everyone taking the knee while Otto's in the throne room and like taking a vow. It looks like it's the anti-heir coronation scene.
Yeah.
Right. And I was looking for people I knew, and I feel like I either 50-50 shot. Did I see him or not? I thought I might have seen him, which kind of like shows like if he dissents there, that could be a crazy scene.
Yeah, right. If he denies it in front of a bunch of people, not just privately one-on-one.
Yeah.
Flashback of Vaemon's life this week.
Yeah.
Now it'll happen to him next week. Oh no.
So did y'all?
Criston's gonna get some blood that week.
Oh.
He's going to town.
So did y'all notice anything about Alicent's dress here in terms of both what it suggests and maybe helps us figure out what day is what, but maybe not, because there are some repeats of dresses from time to time.
But
Yeah, I don't know. She's just wearing like the same dress throughout the trailer, but what actually changes is her hair. Like it's in like some ornate updo, like for some of it. But also like as we've established in this, everyone loved to joke about the first few episodes. Just because she's wearing the same dress does not mean it's like the same day. She loves to outfit repeat, but she has been doing so less so since the actor change. But I was like thinking, like, does it mean like it's just been like a really long day? Is she like taking care of so much stuff that she never really has a chance to change out of the dress, and therefore in some of it you have her hair up, and then like later on, like it's been so long it just comes undone and she just lets it out. And then also this idea, of Alicent unbinding her hair, herself being unbound, and like also starting to seize power, as you were talking about earlier, right? Like I think we could see her overshine Otto, right? And Otto, because he before was like, wow, I've never seen like that side of you, and I think we're gonna see that maybe with that hair. I
see also on the subject of this dress, Christina K points out something I've also seen pointing out, which is that the neckline is very similar to the cut of Rhaenyra's black dress that she wore recently. So just a shout out to the costume design. I think it's like the same cut but modest. With the modest, it's got the modesty cover of like the mesh, So not so much not so much a collarbone on display for the realm to see.
What's interesting in that progression from her younger dresses is her younger dresses were more provocative. They were seductive a lot of the times for Viserys' sake and for the realm's sake, in Otto's eyes, probably. And recently her dresses have been very tight, very constricting, very modest, as you point out. But this dress, actually, the neckline is similar to Rhaenyra's, but then it's a sheer modesty panel and it's not opaque. It's translucent. You can see through it a little bit. So to your point, Eliana, part of her being constricted with that bun and having her hair tied up tightly for the whole entire funeral day and everything going on and figuring out Aegon's coronation, now with her hair down, she's starting to almost be free, right? Like part of taking some of this back for her is that she's now maybe a little freer. That modesty right there, having that sheer on that dress is like, it's a big step for Alicent in the last couple years, I would say.
Laris is into it.
Yeah. She's able to recover part of herself. Laris is like staring over her shoulder at it.
It's like,
Catelyn, run away.
There's a speck of shoulder there.
Thinking like Stinky from Hey Arnold.
Yeah.
All the time.
So there's a couple of things that happen in Fire and Blood that we'll be keeping an eye out for, things that are relevant to the way things fall out and the way that they seize power. For example, Tywin Lannister is immediately made Master of Coin to take the place of the just killed Lord Beesbury. And he immediately seizes the treasury, splits it into fourths. 3/4, 1/4 to Bravos, 1/4 to Castle Rock, 1/4 to Old Town, 1/4 for bribes and sellswords. So
I'm picturing Tylan just reaches over and grabs the ball.
Yeah,
like,
just
I
the
have
ball.
2
Like,
balls.
I'm master of. I have 2 balls now. I will juggle.
Now that he's dead.
So yeah, now that he's dead, I will eat his honey.
I finally he can do something, right?
Yeah,
I would like him to do something in this plot.
I agree.
Yeah.
He's an interesting character.
Yeah, he's going to be
especially
around
later on.
The hooded hand,
In
right?
in your episode 7 preview with Jason, I want to say I was just re-listening, and you're talking about him in Jasper's balls,
Yeah.
singular specifically.
Ironrod's balls.
Ironrod's balls, and what you wanted them to look like. And it is on the
Wrinkly.
website now, so you guys
very
know
good.
it's on the HBO
I
website.
didn't check. I didn't
You'll
see.
have
Yes.
to take a look tonight.
I will.
Yeah,
New balls
Jasper's
dropped.
is beautiful. New balls dropped.
The ball just dropped.
It is. Jasper's ball is like this beautiful, dreamy blue. I'm worried about his blue ball, his blue ball. But it is very pretty. Like, I actually really like it. It's like oceanic almost.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And then Tylan's ball. It is gold.
Okay.
And I did not taste the
Fancy
ball, so
ball.
I cannot tell you the flavor. But it is gold, and it has a slash through it through the middle.
Ooh.
So I'm like, is that to like signify twin? Like you're actually kind of the
Oh.
good,
Oh,
bad?
it's like
I
a
don't know.
slit,
Whatever.
though, slit,
I don't know.
yeah.
But there's just like a dent through it. It's interesting though.
That's
If you
cool.
haven't looked, I try to check on Mondays,
Yeah.
especially after each episode, to see what was updated.
Ah.
I do too,
Just
and
to
sometimes
kinda
they're
check out
slow
the
though. Like they were this
Sometimes
past
it's like
week.
a
I'm like,
Tuesday,
yeah, exactly.
Wednesday.
Sometimes they're like a little
Yeah.
slow, and I'm like, oh, come on, I
Yeah.
need these.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hadn't seen that one
Waiting
yet.
for Darren.
My big problem, by the way, with that HBO Guide site is that they provide the files in really low res. Like I go into like the console, like back door, like to get the files, and I guarantee you there are no high res files.
Yeah.
They are all, anyways, whatever. HBO, if you're listening to this, please give us high res files like you did for Game of Thrones. Cosplayers want these things. Anyways,
So that's followed up by a replacement offer. They need a master of ships now, and they're like, "Hey, well, they've got the sea snake. Probably we need some ships. Let's offer the Red Kraken this job." Boy, that could get interesting. I really wonder how much Red Kraken will be included in the story at all, or whether it'll all be off screen, because he's going to go. He's going to go up against
I'm like-
He's going to go up against Jason Lannister's wife, Johanna Westerling, when Jason goes off and gets killed in the Riverlands.
you know,
Remember
I'm
that
rooting
line? We
for
pointed this out
this.
before when Jason's like, "Women are so slow to the battle." We're like, your wife is literally going to defend the whole West while you're dead. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
See how they handle that. Checking the loyalty of the Gold Cloaks is a big part of this. They appoint Gwaine Hightower second in command behind Luther Largent. I wonder if they'll do that. Gwaine Hightower was already in the show.
Yeah,
He
we
was the
haven't
guy
seen his
jousting
face.
The
Damon.
journey.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the sort of thing that they would show him again in season 2. It's just my thought that if you can avoid casting characters until season 2, and they already introduced Gwaine Hightower in a helm, whereas like if they had cast him for the end of the season, I feel like we would have seen him without his helm at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
So my
Yeah.
guess is that like he's set up for season 2.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I wonder if they'll cast Luthor Largent. I mean, I kind of thought maybe at first he was that really loud guy, Damon's second in command, but that's like somebody. They named that guy in this, like you said, subtitles told us that was some other guy. So Luthor Largent probably coming next year. And we'll notice him if they make him huge. He's supposed to be like 7 feet tall, so he'll stand out if he's cast. So it's funny, they say ravens were not sent, but ravens were sent. They just were sent a little later. They were sent to people that they thought they could count on to be allies. They're like, let's send ravens to people who we think will get allies, so not Dragonstone. So they basically look up anyone who voted for Rhaenyra, or rather voted looked at who bowed to Rhaenyra back in the day.
I'm just picturing like a law, like voter logs.
Yeah, they look back at the voter rolls from 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Telemarketing.
And this leads to realizing Storm's End is in the balance. This is there to like, okay, Storm's End is when we can win over. And how are they going to do that? By sending Aemond. So I suspect we're going to get that in this episode, and we won't get the whole story, but we'll get Aemond leaving King's Landing, which is might be why we see him walking around in the streets. Because Vhagar is too large for the Dragon Pit. We've been told that. In show canon only. In book canon, that's not the case. So,
Interesting.
So Vhagar is not in the city, probably. So to get to his dragon, he has to go outside this. I guess. We don't know where the Vhagar is, but not the Dragon Pit. So we'll probably see that. One thing I don't know if we'll see is the blood oath. Y'all have put this in our notes here. Without Larys in there, they could still do it, but it would be like a nice kind of a mirror image of Damon and Rhaenyra's blood. Their Valyrian wedding. They cut their hand open for that, so it'll kind of mirror that. What do y'all think? Are we
they're
gonna get
polycule.
that?
Yeah. So in Fire and Blood, there's something really interesting in Larry's being at the council, and he speaks and that might be something we see her talking to him and him leveraging over her. Like, now you have to put me in the council. You know this, right? Because I'm going to protect you, right? Joker face. But he says, let us be the first to swear, lest there be traitors here amongst us. And he draws his dagger and cuts his palm with it. Now, especially with the dagger recently and Alicent cutting Rhaenyra, Alicent is excused famously because of being a woman. Larry's is like, everybody should do it except Alicent. Alicent, you don't do it. And there is something poetic of like her not doing it and that protecting her against later and how obviously in the book, Rhaenyra keeps her alive. She doesn't straight up just execute her like she does her dad. Can't wait. And oops, did I say that? But she, has some sort of pity, keeps her in the dungeons, even though she's going after people with her own dagger all the time. It makes me wonder if maybe, since we've seen so many great flipped scripts so far, maybe Condell and et al. Will go, what if Alicent then denies it and says, no, I will take the oath, does it with the Valyrian dagger lightly or something, just to match the blood for blood. And also it's taking, for example, yes, it looks like Larys's protection of him not letting her be included in the oath, but it's very Littlefinger and Sansa in the way that he's constantly making her complicit for things. Yeah. He's constantly dragging her in for insurance for his safety and security, and on her side to hold something over her. So in a way, it's her taking that back, right? Like her saying, no, it's my destiny. And also it's a lot about Alicent's choice, it feels like, coming up. Everything, it seems to revolve around her making a choice of what they do.
Well said. Well point.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with you that I would, if there's going to be a blood oath, I would like Alicent to be part of it and to take agency and control in her being part of this plot. I agree.
Interesting. Yeah. We'll see. That's I wonder if they'll do that in it all, or if some other version of it. Very curious about that.
I'm just picturing the Always Sunny in Philadelphia bit where Mac keeps slitting. He keeps slashing his palm to side, and they're like, "What are you doing? We don't want to do that."
Squirts lime on it.
I'm just picturing someone in the council's like,
Mac is Larys.
And we've seen that playing both sides. That's one of the memes that we shared before that I think Joe Magician had edited Larys' face onto Mac in that episode.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's like, you don't tell us that you're playing both sides, So I always come out on top.
Aurelian 1313 says, Laenor may come into play when little Viserys gets captured by the Triarchy. Hey, that's a possibility. I hadn't heard of that thought. Yeah, because there are a lot of Triarchy subplots. Like we got Joanna Swan, we've got I was going to say Shirako Lohar, but that's part of the same subplot. Yeah. We've got this whole Racalia Radun, as you said. We've got the kidnapping of Viserys and whatever else can happen with that. Yeah, that's a good point. There are quite a few ways for Laenor to come back in the story. That's one of the things that I kind of lean towards he won't, but what gives me pause is that there are a lot of ways. Like there are several options for them to smoothly bring him back in.
Yeah, I will say I lean towards not, but I really, really, really want them to bring him back for both plot reasons in terms of I think it makes sense and in terms of I just want them to answer what the deal is with sea smoke. Like that's going to bother me a lot and a lot of other fans. So I want them to address that.
Yeah, when Davos goes to sail off to get Rick, when Oakenfist goes to get Viserys.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I was like, could he be like where the Oakenfist, when someone like pulls him aside, it's like, yo, I have something to tell you.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
But like Laenor would have to be dead because again, like, what is happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What
they got to do something with the dragon.
Yeah. Ultimately, I'm like,
I need that answer.
Adam can tame another dragon.
We just
is where
figured,
I've landed with it. Is it like it doesn't have to be sea smoke that Adam rides? I guess.
We figure that's the most seamless way to get around that problem. Just no more sea smoke, just some other dragon. Yeah. Why not? Why not? We think sea fire because where there's sea smoke, there must be sea fire. That joke was good enough for me to say twice. Thank you. Yes. So Dragon Den says, I have a question. I've always wondered how come Damon was the heir for so long but never had a sworn Kingsguard? Can the heir refuse protection? Well, I think it's one of these things where Viserys was just not very pushy. He was like, if Damon was like, I don't want that, then Viserys would be like, fine, you don't have to have that.
I feel like it's possible that sometimes Damon had a Kingsguard with him too, right? Like, just because he didn't most of the time doesn't mean that there weren't some circumstances where he would like have a Kingsguard for
because he was also on the council for a while, not just the heir. So
like I put it
he
there
would
because
not want protection.
Yeah, I've seen this comment a few times, and it is a good point. I think the idea that you could refuse it. Like, I do think that he has the wherewithal, that he isn't required to have a guard, whereas I don't really think Rhaenyra could have refused a guard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so like, I don't think the heir can just always refuse protection, but if you're already Daemon Targaryen and you can defend yourself and you're an adult grown man, like, you just have that ability, I think.
And the dude just smacks hands away when they try to help him up. He just, help doesn't, he does not like any sort of help, need any of that. He's, no.
Well, then that's just like Viserys, right? Saying, please don't help me go up the stairs. I got it.
Yeah.
But also, I think like they were talking about this in the official House of the Dragon podcast, where technically Damon is never formally named heir. It's assumed, right? They don't have like a swearing ceremony. So is that maybe why? But also technically, in a way, if you think about it, he makes his own guard, and he's like, we're going to overstaff with all these gold clips.
Well, and also what he says to Emma in episode 1, what he and Emma speak about when she goes, we have a Viserys or a Visenya. Like, I mean, that's all I think about is him being like, you think to give me a guard, brother? They're weak. Look how fast I am with Dark Sisters. Just like Visenya. That's what I think of for sure.
That's totally true. Totally accurate. All right, now a word from our sponsor, NordVPN. Have you ever paid a lot for a flight to discover that if you lived somewhere else and bought the ticket there, you could have paid less? And I mean from the same departure and arrival places. That's what they do to you these days. Almost every airline will track where you're at and bump the price up based on certain factors that they've tracked about you. It sucks, but this is the reality we live in these days. It's not necessarily the government watching you. It's these individual corporations. Well, maybe the government's watching you too, but I'm not about to talk about that right now because I'm talking about saving money. Because avoiding the government, I don't have an answer for you on that one. I'm talking about just like being able to use your own devices without being hassled or interfered with. Using a VPN can free you from things like throttling. Did you know that? I didn't know that until recently.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's really good to know.
They can target you based on what type of user they think you are, and they'll throttle you if you're a private user. But this turns that off, and it's completely 100% legal. The only places VPNs are illegal are China, Iraq, North Korea, and Belarus. Those are the only 4 countries in the world where a VPN is illegal. So yeah, it's really one of those things where it's what you. Sometimes people think things people do with VPNs that's illegal, but it's not the actual VPN that's illegal. Like if you're ripping content off of the internet, like downloading TV shows, that's illegal. Yeah, you shouldn't do that. But
the question here, does NordVPN protect us from Laris's rats?
That is a good question. I think it might. I mean, if it turns your identity out, keeps your identity out of the picture, then how could you know who you are? They might know someone's watching, but they wouldn't know it's you. So another use for it is, for example,
You can also bypass certain region locks without saying more there. Yeah. You can bypass region locking.
I need this.
Actually,
no.
Actually.
For real. Like there is, for example, you can sign up for Netflix cheaper. You can log into this, turn on NordVPN, which was like 2 clicks to turn it on, by the way. Pick a location, or say pick Mexico, and then buy a Netflix account through Mexico. And you now have just signed up through Netflix through Mexico for less than it costs to sign up through the US. And that right there pays for 1 month. NordVPN is like a cost of a cup of coffee per month.
He's just selling it real well.
I know.
No, for real, I'm like,
certain products just sell themselves.
We're going to switch our VPN.
Yeah, I'm canceling my VPN service.
We're literally
right
about to switch, I think, our VPN right now based on this.
This is great. So
get
NordVPN,
a huge discount. And
where do I go?
You're going to get NordVPN.com/thrones, and you get a big discount and 4 months for free through us. And obviously it benefits us too, because then we're like, oh, we had a successful ad campaign. So like, yeah, NordVPN.com/thrones.
30-day money back guarantee.
How long is this promotion? Like, could I start it in like November, right?
I
Or
believe
do I have
so,
to, like,
yeah.
do it now.
I believe it's good
we'll
at
have
least
it for
until
at least a
November.
month. We'll have it for at least a month. Yeah.
I think it's at least good
Okay,
through
cool.
November. And yeah, they're the fastest in the world according to the private rating services. And yeah, some of those things don't work on other VPNs, like the Netflix masking. I'm pretty sure doesn't work on some certain other VPNs. Maybe some other ones it does, but definitely works on NordVPN. So that's cool. Yeah. So next time we'll have other things you can use a VPN for that are also very relevant and useful that will save you money. So in the meantime, like Ashaya said, nordvpn.com/thrones to get that sign up and start saving some money and browsing faster. All right, let's get back to it. There's a trailer shot. This is one of the most confusing moments in the trailer for me. 33 seconds in, there's some like cliff face. This is one of the few moments where I'm like, maybe this isn't King's Landing, but it probably is. It's just maybe this is like off to near the seashore, like where Littlefinger and Sansa escaped after the Purple Wedding, something like that, maybe. But who do we think this is? Is it one of the twins?
I think that, and this is like, it's going to be really hard for you to see if anyone else is looking on the screen right now, but I see a figure with silver hair on the ground and a person in a cloak jumping down. I think that this is going to be Eric and Rhaenys escaping together. That's my theory.
Interesting.
Rhaenys is gonna
I
leave
like
with her.
that.
And
I
yeah,
like
it's a
it.
big stretch because, like, I mean, I can see it here clearly, and so hopefully, if you're watching, you can kind of see an outline of a person down below with silver hair.
That is really hard to see, but yeah.
But I can see it. So, and there is a cloaked figure. So that's my theory: is that Rhaenys and Eric both have to get out of there. And I'm still hoping to see Rhaenys' dragon Meleys at some point, but like
Up close. Yeah.
is Meleys around? Is Rhaenys going to escape on Meleys? That's my hope.
Yeah, more on Rhaenys at the end because we have a section on her and we're very curious because she's not a part of this in the book. She's not at King's Landing during this, so we're really curious what her role is going to be because it's not easily predictable.
This is a great adaptive choice. And I do have to say, when telling the Eric and Arik apart, Eric's mustache points downwards. Arik's curls upwards, just so you guys know. So down is Eric. Up is Arik.
It's a good device to remember it, which is that if you picture a twirly up mustache, that's usually the villainous mustache. It's associated with being more villainous. That's Arik, who's going to be with the green, the bad one. And you can also remember Arik, A for Alicent, if that helps you as well.
That is good.
A for Alicent is like an up for evil, and then you can see it visually right here, but I feel like I've finally gotten their names down.
So,
or like an A points upward.
Yes.
This is where the mustache.
So apparently a subplot here will be that Aegon wants to be king or doesn't want to be king so badly that he hides from his own coronation or just can't be found.
Amazing.
Like it looks like they're
funny.
chasing him through the sept. Like really, they're having to actually catch. He's like, I really don't want this. No, don't crown me. Don't crown me. We're with you, Aegon. It's one of the few things I agree with you on. Like you're a crappy dude. But you're right that you shouldn't be king.
No, I think that's going to be an actually very funny scene to me.
Look at us chasing him. Look at this.
Like capture. I don't know.
It's so funny.
It's very amusing to me. I'm looking forward to capture the Aegon.
It seems Aemond might be involved in helping him because Aemond seems to be fighting off one of the gentlemen in the trailer. So I'm almost wondering if Aemond's like, bro, I'm gonna hook you up. I don't think you should be king either.
Maybe because he thinks he should be king. He's like, because I should be king instead.
Who does? Like a show of hands, everybody. Who does think that Aegon should be king?
Literally, Aegon's like the first to put up his hand of like, wait, I don't want to be king.
Yeah.
I do not think I'm qualified.
Takes us also back to episode 1 where Otto says the gods have yet to make a man who lacks the patience for absolute power. So once he does become king, it'll just go to his head and he'll absolute power to drink and sleep around. Robert again. Yep.
Exactly. Absolutely. Someone also made a quick thing of like the people escaping. Who was it? Where are you, person? Someone pointed out that another view says could it be Bela? Because also anyway.
Yeah.
We can come back to that question. Where is
Where
Bela?
is Moondancer?
Did Bela leave?
That's so interesting because Bela was Rhaenys' ward. So unless they were like, Bela's marrying Jace, and so you're gonna go.
Oh, that would make sense if
she
she
said
went
we're
to
taking the
Dragonstone.
kids, and maybe
go with your dad.
maybe that was the end of her wardship with Rhaenys or something like that.
Yeah, and we know from Fire and Blood that Bela was big on sticking with Jace, sticking by his side and upholding his what he wanted. So
Anyway,
that would fit. It would
he didn't
fit.
exactly stick by her side. No, I'm like,
That's
I
true.
see a lot of people shipping Jace and Bela, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, like, it's sweet, but like, Jace isn't really the best betrothed. Gotta say, it's got to be a disappointing.
He's gonna break that
Sarah.
vow.
Yeah, he's gonna do it. So Bela might be really into Jace, but Jace seems pretty like, it's fine, whatever.
So sad.
Yeah.
Then she gets with Alan.
So sad.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then she has like her other like
It works out for her.
It works out for her.
tumultuous relationship.
Yeah, like ultimately,
She
it's
needed-
you know.
She deserved better, though. Poor Bela.
So in the book, when they're looking for Aegon, they don't know where he is in the book either. There's no evidence he runs away in the book, but he is also hard. He is hard to find. And they go to Helaena first, and she says, "He is not in my bed. You may be sure. Feel free to search beneath the blankets." Beware the beast beneath the blankets. Yeah.
Yeah, truly though, beware Aegon.
Yeah.
For real.
I'd forgotten we'd gotten some actual sentences from Helena in Fire and Blood. Actually.
Yeah, she's
Like,
got a couple lines,
a little
but-
personality there that she might make crack a joke.
So there's the shot of that you just showed of them, one of them chasing Aegon at the Grand Sept, but there's that other really beautiful shot where there's the two of them together at the Sept, lighting candles and looking at him, and it's very sad knowing what's coming for them. Yeah, they're going to be turned into kinslayers the second before they die, I suppose.
We see. Christina K points out something that you brought up as well. Here is these. Nobody suspects the butterfly reminded them that they found Aegon receiving sexual favors near a fighting ring for kids,
Which looks like we'll be getting something like that. There are trailer shots of some sort of fighting pit. You know, I don't. There's no girl, but it's just a trailer shot, so maybe there will be. I kind of hope we don't get that part, but
Yeah, I kind of like what they've done with not having it as much on screen for us to see.
Yeah.
Terrible behavior. Just tell us that it happened and show the reaction in the person who is affected by it, and instead, like with Diana, prefer that.
So there's a line from Fire and Blood that's what sort of brother steals his sister's birthright, which is Aegon's line in the book, and Alicent had that line much earlier in the season, which we thought was a pretty cool way to move that around a little bit. But y'all have pointed out that actually this has happened a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah. The issue is like the dance is just, for me, it feels like the culmination of like a powder keg. This is not the first time that succession with female claimants has come up as an issue, and the female claimants have threatened multiple people multiple times, right? Like, for example, Rhaena, there's another Rhaena in the series. We were talking about another Rhaena. Very confusing, the Targaryen family. So Rhaena, the daughter of Aenys, and granddaughter of Aegon the Conqueror, who's wed to Aegon the Uncrowned. That Rhaena was the eldest child of Aenys, and therefore had a very strong claim as well to the Iron Throne. And technically, and she reminds Jaehaerys of this quite a few times, that technically the throne is her birthright. And you even have like Arya, whose name is just Heir, because she's the heir for a lot of people.
She's made heir.
She is, and even like Rogar even says at one point, he's like, we should just crown Arya and be done with it. So it comes up a lot, and even during the Jaehaerys, like, he is like, yeah, maybe we should let the brothers steal his eldest child Daenerys' birthright.
They're kind of like let the man go first, unless we don't like the man, then we'll go to the woman. That's kind of how a lot of them seem to act about it.
Because the rules are all made up and the points don't effing matter. Like, that's the whole point of this and what we're seeing. Like, none of it matters, because it turns out, and in the book, the series doesn't as well. We don't see that. We don't see how many times he reiterates Rhaenyra as the heir, right? Like, a lot of us, I think, went into this series wondering how that would play out. But in the show, it's pretty clear that Viserys continues to say Rhaenyra is his heir. So why is everyone going, so what if she wasn't?
She's his only child. Who else could succeed him? Only child.
Yeah, in the book, it's more like clear that he's against the talk of bastardy, which isn't quite the same thing as supporting her as heir. It certainly helps.
Exactly.
Like, if people think her kids are bastards, that hurts a lot. But he's more about that than about assuring the succession and all that other stuff. There's also a line that apparently Aegon finally comes around when convinced that they're going to kill him otherwise. Not his own family, but that Rhaenyra and Damon will. And it's Criston being the convincing voice in the book, but I'm guessing it won't be here. It might be like Arik, or maybe it will be Criston. Maybe when they corral him and bring him to the dragon pit and he's still like, I don't want to do it, and then they talk to him. Something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking that like because Aegon clearly doesn't want it, so I don't think he really gives a crap about like whether his family dies because his mom has already told him that, especially because Alicent mistreats him.
Yeah, she
much and
smacks
abuses him.
around,
So yeah, maybe he's like, I don't care if my mom dies, let her. She smacks me all the time, and then if she's gone, I can do whatever I want, right? Like he clearly kind of wants to do that, but I'm kind of wondering if Cole does it. Like, does he not use this tact, right? Like we've seen Cole being a pretty terrible dude in terms of the things he says. Like, would he goad Aegon into maybe taking the kingship? They could just force him, like unwillingly just force him, right? Which might be how it goes. But or could Cole goad him into the kingship by appealing to like his sense of like masculinity or something? Like you would let Jace, like because we see a rivalry between Jace and Aegon, but you're gonna let him take the throne instead of you, or a bastard, or like what kind of man are you that you like let a woman take your, throne, kind of like negging him into becoming the king, right? Especially because we see character is such a big driver in this show.
Yeah, his appeal to his baser instincts, of which he has several.
Yeah.
That's like most of what drives him. So that's a really good point. Yeah, just
you're like, hey, you want to do what you want? You should be the king then.
That
you could
kid who doesn't know how to have sex. Yeah. That's according to Aegon. So, yeah, as you pointed out, there's a fight in the streets, and it looks like Aemond fighting one of the Eric or Ark, which is, I like your idea of what they might be fighting over, of defending. He's like Aemond trying to keep them from catching Aegon. To corone him. To corone him.
God, you're like, what is up with you in this
what
joke
else
today? Enough.
He's workshopping
Yeah,
it. He's workshopping it.
We should chronicle all of it. Submit all of them to the dictionary.
Wait.
Like that.
Chronicle it?
Bionicle it. No. Oh my gosh, I'm shaking the table.
So this is another shot of Aemond. What I'm thinking here, Aemond and Alicent embracing. I wonder if this is right before he leaves for Storm's End. He's got the more like he's more dressed up here, whereas in the shots when he's out in the street, he's wearing more like street clothes. So this is a different outfit, I think. I think it's hard to tell for sure because of the cloak. But
it could be before he gets sent to Storm's End, but it could just be before he goes out on his little mission in the city as well, right?
Yeah, he could wear something over that.
Yeah.
She could be like, "Oh, go collect these Kingsguard. They're trying to escape. Go do this for me." Or I feel like there's a number of missions that Alicent could send Aemond on. I even contemplated the idea that it was related to the idea of Aegon having a little bastard son, that Alicent's like, well, we better have family members go deal with this, not someone else. So that I contemplated that being related as well.
I do wonder if that could be Aziz, the end of the episode. One of the last couple scenes could be her sending him, and that would do setup to maybe have Storm's End in the finale. Someone cleverly saw in the behind the scenes on the screens during some CGI kind of stuff they were showing, they saw Aemond in a different setting that was not King's Landing. So it could. I think we are. I mean, first of all, why do you think we haven't seen dragons up close in a while? We gotta save some budget, right?
Yeah, for big dragoning and stuff. Are we gonna get Sunfire or Melee? She talked about maybe Sunfire with his, because in the book he circles around 3 times. After being coroned.
So 2 thoughts here. One, I note that in this shot of Alicent and Aemond, this is when Alicent's hair is down. So that does point to this is at the end of the day. If we're thinking that, if we're thinking Alicent starts the day with her hair up and by the end of it she's taking it down, whereas I have to admit that it could technically go the other way, that she starts with it down and she puts it up, but that's not my impression. That isn't what I take from it, but I have to acknowledge that, like, you could have your hair down and be like, oh, let me put it up now. It could go the other way.
Very Violet Beauregard.
But I think she takes a maid to do it.
Yeah.
No, she's not doing her own hair.
That's true. I'm guessing Talia's in the dungeons. Now she has to do her own hair.
Who's dressing the kids?
She has no maids. So who's going to do her?
They're all, that's true. That might actually be a great point. If they've locked up all the servants, a lot of things might be like dishes piling up.
Can't take my dress off. Who's going to undress me?
Yeah, where's my food?
Anyone.
They already weren't dusting his 40K.
She's going to be calling Aemond. She's like, Aemond, help mommy take off her dress.
Rats were just piling up. So there's another shot of Aemond sitting by a fireplace, and this could be already at Storm's End. It's in that same outfit I think he's wearing when he leaves.
I have my theory on it, though.
You think it's something else?
I think this is Aemond watching Helaena do needlepoint. That's what I think.
That's totally valid possibility.
I have to admit that I
That's cute.
am a Helaena shipper. I know that
Oh,
they're
interesting.
I'm
I know that
unfortunately there
there's
too.
I know that they're siblings. Okay, I get it. But like,
It's not that, that's normal now in this show.
but like,
Yeah,
you
that's
can't look at like
normalized.
here's Helaena doing her needlepoint, and she like,
Yeah, maybe he's right
and
there.
then he's just like right off the side, and he's just watching her. That's what I
Yeah.
think. That's really what I think.
Aegon was like, she's such a weirdo, and Aemond was like, all women are queens,
I'm into
Aegon.
that.
All women are queens.
It seems a little weird for her to be like in full daylight while there's a fire going right there.
Yeah,
but
that's
this
true.
is the
Yeah.
setting. Like that's
Yeah.
it's not weird for this setting.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm
Yeah.
rooting for these Helaena scenes, I suppose.
If it's Storm's End, it's a bit of a mirror to Damon at Driftmark at the end of episode 2 when they're like, oh, who's Corlys talking to? Like if you're a book reader, you already know it's Damon.
yeah.
We were watching with someone who
Yeah.
was Unsullied, and they were like, oh, it's Damon. Oh my god. So this would be
Corlys and
like
Damon.
they wouldn't moment wouldn't be as like who is this Baratheon guy? They wouldn't know who that is, but we would. So
I
maybe
need to look
wouldn't
at
work
that
as well.
chair deeper, honestly.
Ah.
Not to be a weirdo, but look at that chair.
Oh.
After this, offline, I'm going to
Let's
look
see.
at
I'm
it and come
looking at
back
it
to you and
close.
look
Let's
at the
see.
Storm's End chairs.
Oh,
I'm
well,
looking
Of what we
back.
could see in that scene. Yeah, with Rhaenyra.
We've already done hair analysis. Why not chair analysis?
Yeah.
Oh,
Interesting. Yeah, I have them on screen, so anyone can look closely now. They are
Who's
both
this
there.
scene?
Interesting.
So I have a
We have a quick super chat too.
Oh, cool. Whose cloak game is better, Aemond or Damon? Ooh. Tie.
I like Aemond has like his cloak has like a silver chain around the neck right here. Damon's is kind of like a plain black cloak.
I think Damon's still a little more inconspicuous because he doesn't have the
Yeah,
eye
yeah,
patch
yeah.
like that. It's a little easier. He's hiding his hair color, but you can't hide that eye patch, and that's kind of
Yeah.
He's just copying his uncle's Dark Kermit,
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, who did it first?
I love the dark Kermit.
It's almost
Yeah.
Halloween.
Well, I had all these fun things to say about Eric and Arik, but we may have to save a lot of that for later. We're
We'll have
running a little
time.
short on time, so we'll talk about that some other time. We'll have time to talk about Eric and Arik
Yeah.
later. We will say one thing.
We at least prepped everyone on how to know who's who.
I want to point out one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat
Yeah.
because it's a little bit reversed. In the show, we see Eric catching Aegon raping someone, which is like gives you a great reason for why this guy will abandon Aegon as king. Be like, well, I don't want to be Kingsguard to the rapist. Meanwhile, in the book, Arik discovers Damon and Rhaenyra hooking up, which sets him on a course to stay green, presumably. So that's kind of a neat, like they mirror imaged it a bit, which is, well, it's a double mirror, a double reverse mirror. Yeah, I don't know how many mirrors. Too many mirrors. I can't keep track of it all. So.
And I will say from the official website, they name him as Aegon II's sworn shield protector. Eric is Aegon II's sworn protector and shield, where in the book, Arik is named Rhaenyra's protector when Harwin gets sent home.
Yeah.
So that's another neat little nod and mirror, right? And it kind of further bonds the tragedy that I'm sure we'll talk more about as you get closer to it someday.
Yeah, and I noted one of y'all pointed out the Arthurian connection here, which is worthwhile to point out. Go
Yes,
ahead.
Balin and Balin.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
There's the Arthurian legend, of course, of Sir Balin and his brother Balin le Savage, the knight with two swords. They're tragic brothers destined to eventually kill each other in battle. And basically, a lady shows up with a magical sword, and she's like, if you can take this out, Balin, it's yours. Only the most virtuous can have it. But he already had a magical sword, so he's being a little greedy. And there was a prophecy made that he who wields these two swords without giving them away, if he keeps both, the man he loves most in the world will bring about his destruction. So by disbelieving this prophecy and keeping both swords, the fate of his brother, Balin, the other one, it's sealed. So he fails to recognize his brother in battle and kills him.
Oof, nasty, but
Wah,
very
wah.
familiar. Yeah, that does sound very similar.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how they'll do it. It's going to be tragic. It's very epic. It comes up Bran's second chapter in A Song of Ice and Fire. Eric and Ark are mentioned.
yeah.
The first
That's how-
dance mention.
That's how old this
Dang.
legend is. It's George came up with it right away, and of course, it's mentioned alongside the Dance of the Dragons. Also, Ryan Redwine is mentioned in that quote too. So we've already had his legend was already kind of passed by the time the show started, but we did at least get to see him.
I'm just thinking of now, like with the two swords, like Thailand,
Oh,
twin
yeah.
with his two
yeah.
balls.
Yeah.
His two balls.
His two balls.
That's another interesting note, by the way. Thailand is one person. Thailand and Jason are one actor playing two roles. This is actually two. These are real twins.
Twins.
Yeah.
Elliot and
Luke.
Luke Tittensor.
Tittensor, yeah.
Yeah. They were both.
Yeah.
They were one character in another show. They were both playing one guy, whereas now they're two
They were
different
in the UK Shameless as one of the
Yep.
Gallaghers.
Just like Mary Kate.
Yes, just like.
Whereas I had this weird moment
Playing the one baby.
where I was rewatching the House the Dragons built behind the scenes stuff, and I was watching the one for like episode 3, and they have the scene with in the behind the scenes with the Lannister family, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's good old Brett Lannister, there's Jason Lannister, and I'm like, who is this other Lannister guy with them? And I'm like so confused, and like it clicks. I'm like, oh yeah, it's one guy playing Jason in Thailand. That's Thailand. That's the stand-in that they have to use for him.
Yeah.
And it threw me off so much. But yeah, it's interesting when they just clearly when there's going to be a fight between two twins, it makes so much more sense to cast two different twins. Whereas if you're if Jason and Thailand are really not together very often, it makes a lot of sense to stick with one actor there.
It's like all comes down to logistics.
Yeah,
and the budget.
Yeah. How are you going to have them fight each other if they're one person?
It's cheaper to have one Lannister twin and cheaper to have two Cargyle twins, basically, weirdly.
Yeah.
And of course, let's not forget that Olenna's guards are Eric and Arik. As well.
Left and right.
She calls them left and
I
right.
believe someone named them out. I named them after them.
Who has
kind
twins?
of ominous. Yeah.
Who would ever have twins and be like, ooh, I know the perfect famous twins to name you after?
I would sadly I don't know if they're gonna have to come to it in battle, but I would love to see that. Like I think George might do it, right?
Yeah. Do you guys think that's ominous? Like it hasn't been set up.
Yeah,
but
it really
maybe
hasn't been set up for them to have a conflict with each other.
Dance of the Roses? What is that? Yeah.
I mean, it could so happen that one of them is set to guard one side of things, Tommen, and one a Tyrell. I mean, it could be.
That's true. We'll see. It's ominous for sure. But let's talk a little more about Aegon. His vibe is definitely Aegon the Fourth. He's Aegon the Unworthier Aegon the Unworthy before Aegon the Unworthy. It's only because he loses his health declines so severely that he doesn't father even more bastards. I think that was a good thing for the realm that he got so messed up twice that it impeded his progress towards setting up future civil wars. And we mostly talked about the child that we're not sure about.
I think there's a good point that you have here about the age that I'd like you to bring up, though.
Okay.
I just like, for me, as you and I were discussing, right, like the ages don't really work because
for Game and Pale Hair, is that what we're talking about?
For Game,
because he is supposed to be younger, right, than Aegon III, and if we do the Aegon III stuff, I feel like part of the characterization of Aegon is shown like that he's so traumatized that his friend is someone so much younger than him, like this like child that he hangs out with. But I don't know.
Whereas this would be older, a little bit older, not a lot older, but as we've seen Aegon recently, Aegon is maybe 3 and this kid's maybe 5, like pretty like around the same age though. Hard to tell for this child because I also am not good at telling children's ages.
We are not experts on child development.
And if this child was like a child of a servant, probably would have been discovered by now. So this is probably someone from outside the castle, right? It probably would have come up sooner than when they were 2 or 3.
It didn't look like a place in the castle either. It doesn't look like the dungeons.
Yeah, it looks somewhere. Yeah, it just like somewhere lower rent or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks like he's been going down to some brothels and sleeping with people, and one of them had a bastard, and no one found out. And yeah, that could be Game and Pale Hair, but it also could just be setting up like, oh, Aegon's having bastards. Like, there's room for that. And like we already addressed, there's room for them to introduce a bastard child, but not actually introduce the parents, the mothers, or anything like that. There's a few ways they could play it to make it work.
Yeah.
They could always do similar and bring it back. I mean, we could always hear of because I'm wondering if this is going to be a Davos situation where they spirit the bastard away, right? And the bastard gets spirited away for now because maybe Alicent wants to kill him.
Heir to spare.
Heir to spare. So spirit him away and he comes back. Maybe they take him with them to Dragonstone to crown Rhaenyra.
Interesting. That's a good idea.
And that's when he starts being Aegon III's buddy.
I was also thinking like they could use this child and then they decide let's not do anything, right? In contrast to like Cersei being like, kill all the kids.
Kill all the kids. Book
kill all the
Cersei
kids.
or Joffrey.
It would be. That would be
instead of that, Yeah,
That would be
and
a
it
good
has
counterpoint,
ramifications
yeah.
down the line. Like, we didn't handle this back then, and now you've got
Now you have
Criston
Moon.
and Damon, and you've got all these other pretenders.
Because I really don't want and I don't think they can do Moon of the Three Kings in the background. Like, in my opinion, that's a pivotal moment in the story.
Yeah.
I think Ryan will give it to us. Ryan
is
I
a
think we're
king.
gonna get it.
Ryan,
I love you, Ryan. I believe in Ryan Condal.
I agree. I still, even with my belief, I still have my doubts because I've learned my lesson from Game of Thrones. Like, I mean, I've talked about it before. Like, there was I was so confident that Ariane Martell would be in Game of Thrones. Like, there was zero doubt in my mind. Like, I was like, she's a perfect HBO character. They need it. There's like a million reasons why there was no doubt, and it was so out of left field for me. And so if I'm like, I don't even feel like Essie and Sylvena and Game and like, I don't feel like they're like, I feel like they are very essential, to be clear, but not even to the same level I felt that about Ariane. So I have to let myself not get my hopes all up. Like, I really want it.
That's smart. Yeah.
But I'm trying to just be like, it's okay if it doesn't happen. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna be upset. It's not. It might hurt. Yeah, I've been hurt.
Yeah. But protect your heart.
Yeah. So like, but I do think it would be a good. I like your idea of showing the idea that they don't kill the child, which is kind of a softening moment for Alicent in like a scene, like an episode where there might be a lot of things to harden people towards Alicent, but it might be if she chooses not to kill the child, then that's a point in her favor, but also something that will come to bite her later in her ass for like, so like, I feel like that could be a good choice, but it could also just be that Alicent does order the killing, but it's someone else that takes the child away.
Yeah, I would
Lars
that's more what I
it.
think is
Interesting.
Eric or Arik, whoever goes to see the child, I'm wondering if they become the Davos and spring them and say, we can't just kill this kid.
Yeah. That's building up to our next topic, but we're not quite done with this one yet. It's related. Yeah, I'm wondering if Alicent is going to fall farther down that slippery slope. If she's trying to minimize the amount of evil she has to do to accomplish what she thinks is right, which means forcing Deanna to have abortion T or plan T rather than murder her, right? Which is apparently what the only two choices she thinks she has are. Which also she doesn't want to be like her enemies. Like she was told by her father all throughout her life that Rhaenyra is going to kill your children. And it's not because she wants to; it's because she has to. So she's like finds herself in the same position where she's like, "Do I really have to kill these children?" But it's one thing to force someone to take the 48-hour pill, the equivalent of that, versus a child who's already 3 years old. You can't. It's too late to back out of that. So
different.
she can't cover that up the same way. So I wonder if she's gonna, like you said, is it just she's gonna decide? Well, I do have to kill a child, and that's just gonna make her. It's just easier to do the first time. It gets worse and worse for her.
I genuinely hope she doesn't. I really do hope that Alicent takes a stand and says, no, I don't want to do that. And that, again, that isn't a good decision for her long term because it does hurt her or whatever. But that it's a good moral decision because I really just... It's hard being on social media and having people hating on one side so heavily. Like it's not my favorite. Yes, the groundwork is laid for Aegon to be like this in Fire and Blood. Like all of it's there on the page. Like you could extrapolate that he's like that, but it still makes it really hard for anyone who wants to be Team Alicent or Team Greens to be like, yeah, we're supporting a rapist as king. Like they really don't have a defense there. And I've seen a lot of complaints from people online who wish that it wasn't quite as damning, but I think the black side will do some more damning things eventually. Already they have done some pretty terrible things, admittedly.
And
like,
more to come,
they've done some very terrible things, I must say. It's just a little different. It's not quite the same kind of terrible.
Once you start losing your own children, I think that's when you can go farther. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's when even Cersei was bad, but got a lot worse after she lost a child, and then even once you've experienced that,
we're definitely going to see that.
Yeah, Rhaenyra and Alicent will both get worse when they lose children. Yeah. Which is understandable.
There'll be no defending anyone. That's what I'm like.
They're fighting.
And someone who will probably pour a lot of fuel on this fire is Mysaria, the White Worm.
My love. I cannot wait.
I still don't know what she's doing, but God, it's interesting. It is interesting.
What is she doing? Okay, so here's...
I think they're going to pile a lot of this crap on her. Like, she's going to be the crime lord secretly. A lot of messing around with people's emotions and, opposite Larry's.
Yeah, opposite Larry. Or maybe they'll work together. I really wonder if they'll work together at all, if they sell secrets to each other or anything like that. And that's something I'm really curious about. At first, I was like, I wonder who she's talking to in the scene. And then we figured it out. It's Eric. She's talking to Eric.
Interesting.
Pull it up. We can see it on the screen. Eric is facing her. It's like the exact opposite image here of him facing next to her. There. Look at that.
Here we go.
It's
Eric
like you get
that's
the same,
them in the shot of all the people in the thing.
Yeah, some sort of rooftop or some sort of bar. You all pointed out as like a rooftop bar, maybe.
I don't know if it is. I just like making that joke.
Yeah.
I just like rooftop bars. That's it. That's just a me thing.
It might be. It's definitely some sort of outdoor
I'm guessing that it might be something like Mysaria telling Eric, like, "Hey, Aegon's had a bastard with one of my ladies,"
or just telling her where he's hiding. Like, "Oh, I know where he is."
Yeah, something like that.
He's at this fighting pit. Comes something simple like that, or how to get out. Like maybe he's like, "I want to get out of the city."
Yeah,
with this blonde-haired kid. I need help escaping.
Yeah,
there's a lot of possibilities. It's really cool.
You're right. There is a lot of possibilities for her to do even some good. Not necessarily. She's supporting chaos. Team Chloe right there. But there is room for her to not just be doing bad things surreptitiously and connivingly. Like she can be doing things like helping a child escape from being killed. Like
someone that like had a similar upbringing to her. Like she's someone she has a soft spot for. Like this was me when I was that age or something like that. But it's super compelling. Like I really wonder what they're doing here. Do you think maybe she's still working with Otto? She worked with Otto really early on. I wonder if that's back in play now that he's hand again. Any thoughts on that?
I think that's more like commission based, right? Like that's what she needed, a quick buck. Because I don't think that one thing about these alliances, and it is very Varys and Littlefinger and some of those different machinations we see, they aren't loyal to one person. They never are. They're always changing. So maybe Myzaria's game will be 4D chess for a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't know, because it depends on the timing of things, because we see someone who has a mustache maybe, and Otto's like, go handle this, I don't know, quietly, or I'm totally butchering the line.
Yeah,
but I think that was Arik.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe.
You think it was Arik?
It looked like him. I feel like Arik has his hair down more.
That's why it could look like him. No. I don't know.
E is the good one, as someone pointed out earlier in chat. One of our friends pointed out E is for Eliana, so that's how you know it's the good one.
They've also got slightly different cloak colors, like you can tell. So there's a couple other differences there. Like I'll put on the screen here.
So E's the good one. My initials are AAA. So I'm very
evil. Is the bad one.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited to find out more about what Mysaria is up to. I hope that by the end of this episode, especially, we'll have a better grip on her character.
Yeah.
I agree. I hope so. I'm cosplaying her at Con next year. It's my
white cloak and the white worm.
So like I'm rooting to see all the rest of her outfits. I was happy to see her in a new outfit this time with her hair up. Because I don't know if I want to do the big
green.
Yeah. She was in like a blue green.
That cloak was gorgeous.
Yeah, it was very lovely. But I'm not sure if I want to do her snooky hair, her like New Jersey like bump
her beehive.
Yeah, her beehive. I'm not sure about that one.
Well, maybe she's friends with Rhaenys now, and Rhaenys taught her how to do her hair.
Oh yeah, that's exactly how it happened.
So
probably helping spring up.
Christina K noticed that it might be a satchel over Eric's shoulder, the person jumping over that cliff or whatever that is that's happening in that moment. This very good chance that's the crown, because we know Eric steals Viserys' crown to give to Rhaenyra. So
and we see the crown in the trailer, of course.
Oh, I guess it wouldn't be Eric in the book. It's Stefan Darkland, but it's
and we see the other crown. My bad. We see that we see the fact that they're not using Viserys' crown to crown Aegon,
which is a great segue to the coronation itself. We have Otto standing in front of the Iron Throne, kind of awkwardly. Like the mood is like, what's going on here? Everybody's kind of uncomfortable, which is presumably him kind of making some sort of announcement. There's a trailer shot of Gold Cloaks kind of herding people, like through the streets, as if it's like making them go to the coronation. Yeah.
Gold Cloaks hurting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
Probably.
Well, it might be hurting them a little bit. But yeah.
Kind of forceful.
So there's a line here. Grand Maester Munkin, drawing upon Orwell, tells us that more than 100,000 small folk jammed into this dragon pit, their cheers so loud that they shook the very walls, whilst Mushroom says the stone benches were half filled. Oh, what another modern comparison we can make, lying about the size of your inauguration, is it?
That killed me. I literally, all we go is like, how Trumpian is this? They straight up coerced and forced people, and they herded people. And earlier, Eliana and I were talking, and she's like, "Oh, Chloe, you like shepherded
like
those
shepherd? Because the shepherd comes in.
I mean, they're being mistreated by their current king. Yeah. So you can see why they're going to turn to being shepherded instead.
Wow.
Prophets fighting each other. We got a prophet on the Queens. Prophet. independent.
A good, simple example of the sources disagreeing on something that's very different. Like, you would think that there would be evidence of a difference of something like 40 to 50,000 people, but that's back in an era where there's no photographs. Like, it is just hearsay.
That's true.
So
Again, fact check.
yeah, it's really, really interesting to see these things in a low tech environment or a no tech environment, basically. So yeah, there's a great shot of guards inside the dragon pit with their weapons crossed. This is presumably Aegon will walk under this.
So, okay, and I had a funny story to share about this thing, which is that you see how all the guards with their swords crossed above them, like you see right there. When we went to an event with George at Castle Ward in Ireland, right, in 2019, and they did that exact thing where George walked through the group, and everyone had a sword, like everyone
including
there,
us,
including us. We all had a
swords.
plastic sword, like they gave them out, and we all did that thing where we make the tower, and then George walks through it. And so I guess
this was on the set of Winterfell.
Yeah, on the Winterfell set. So I didn't know. I'm assuming that's a real world thing that you put your swords all together and then someone walks through. Anyways, random thing.
Amazing.
It looks cool.
Yeah. So certainly George has had it happen to him. So.
So
Like when you do the parachute, and everyone sits under the parachute.
That's a great idea.
I was like cat and mouse.
Yeah, this is kind of like that. You're totally right.
Is it? I don't know.
And
Sounds just as fun.
I see here Dean Brown points out, are those Valyrian runes on the dragon pit? Yes, those are. Some people have already started translating them a little bit, but I'm sure we'll get a definitive answer pretty quickly. So,
Big
but
ass
yeah, there's
dragons
definitely
in here.
the glyphs for like world are in there, for example.
Dragons are us.
Yeah.
Or sorry, dragons are us in this case.
Of course.
Railroad us. They do railroad us.
Every week, I always make sure to refresh and check David Peterson's archive of our own that he's doing. He's posting them every week, and I've been trying to make it a habit.
Yeah, that's like I really like
cool.
that he's hosting that on a like archive of our own is a fan fiction website, and it's like he's doing chapter by chapter, episode by episode, just the translation. So yeah, you can find that on his AO3, which is a fun thing to say.
He might provide some soon.
You hear that phrase, some people are built differently. Yeah, David J. Peterson is built differently. He is just a different sort of man, in a good way. Of course, I mean that entirely complimentary. He is a great person. So we also have this interesting shot of Aemond kind of staring at Aegon during the coronation. Like, that is not a happy look. That's not a good job, brother. That is like... Maybe I picture like Damon looking at his brother that way when he was getting his credits. Like, brother, I will defend you, but also I don't like you, and I think you're weak. That kind of thing. He's like, only I get to say that kind of thing. Like, he's my whipping boy.
Cute.
I don't know. How do you guys read this look? Maybe he's like.
I'll note he's standing next to Helaena. Aemond is.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize that. You're totally right. There she is.
I can't wait to see her coronation
I did
gown.
not notice that. Good point. What do y'all read from this look? Anything?
Is Aemond jealous? Does Aemond want to be king? Is he just like, ugh, my brother? I don't know.
I don't know, because now that you've pointed out like of him, I forgot there was something you said just now that made me think of the parallels between Aemond and Aegon.
Yeah,
and then also Viserys and Damon's relationship, and Aemond just kind of being a Damon role and maybe supporting that. I don't know, but also I don't know. They don't have a great relationship.
Yeah, he might just be. I like someone in the chat. Dean Brown said that's Aemon's "Don't F this up" look, and it could just be him. Like he was just so drunk and like
he's just
keep
wobbling
it together or something.
I'm king. 7 kings, 8. How many kingdoms are there?
Yeah, that might just be his it might just be his judgmental look and not his envious or jealous look necessarily. But I don't know. My read on it is that like. Aemond isn't the kind. He isn't trying to be king in that he's like, let me kill my brother. I really, really, really want to be king. But that Aemond is like, boy, it would be nice if I was the king and I was married to Helaena, and like it would be better, and I hadn't lost my eye. Like I get the impression that Aemond probably has like some thoughts about how his life could have gone or something. I mean, he probably is just like, I have Vhagar. Things are good enough for me. I have a better seat than the Iron Throne right now in Vhagar. Like that might be his perspective too.
Yeah. I wonder if they'll maintain the actual crownings. Like Criston Cole puts the crown on his head in the book, and isn't it Alicent? I think y'all wrote in the notes here. Alicent crowns Helaena. If they'll do it that way. Maybe it'll be a little different. That's a small enough thing they could change it, but mean, Criston Cole hasn't been Lord Commander for 2 decades, so that would be that would be a little strange maybe to do it here, but it still could.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as meaningful.
Maybe. I mean, especially with his role in making the crowning happen that day is probably what I expect we'll see, right?
He is the Kingmaker.
Yeah.
That's his title. That was
he is the Kingmaker. I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got to keep that.
Yeah. Now, and Helaena, Alicent crowning Helaena is also something so sad because it's not unlike her own version of the prophecy to pass down, saying, now you will do as I did. You will do your duty. Here's your crown. Because the way in the books it's worded, it's like she says it almost, not sadly necessarily, but sympathetically, like just like my queen, and she pats her and puts the crown on her. And in my head, I just see that so sad. Like, what is it, Eliana? Our favorite, to crown them is to kill them.
To crown them is to kill them. Yeah, that's what really kills them,
Yeah.
That line starts coming up around the time that we get the backstory about Criston Cole, right, in Feast for Crows. They start busting that line out. I wonder if we do get another prophecy during the coronation, though. What if she just says something weird?
She's going to drop some bars next episode, I feel it.
I love people calling it, like, her dropping bars.
She is. She's always dropping bars on them.
Yeah, that's a really good point about Tyrion and Illyrio's conversation about the coin. On one side is the death's head, is the skull. The other side is the crown, and it's like it's the same. Yeah, that's a great point.
So I wanted to point out also there was a moment from the previous episode that wasn't subtitled, but that if you have headphones on, you can hear a little snippet of a conversation between Aegon and Aemond at the dinner table that I wanted to read. Originally, someone I'd seen people who thought it was them talking about a Helaena thing, but that was not the case. But this is what they say, and it's a little bit of a glimpse at their dynamic. Aemond says, "You drink too much," and Aegon says, "You do not drink enough." And Aemond says, "You drink more than a Braavosi Sea Lord," and Aegon says, "I drink just the right amount." So shows a little bit of Aemond.
I'm the
problem. This is very similar to the guy who inherited Genghis Khan's crown. Like the first of his sons was, I think, Ogadai, and he drank too much. He drank a lot, and so all his brothers got together and bro, you're not allowed. You shouldn't drink this much anymore. And they made him agree to only have 1 cup of wine a day.
So was it a big cup?
Yes, he got a giant cup. He got around the rule, but he had himself made a humongous cup and just laughed at his brothers, and they were like, "Dude, you suck." Ogadai, Aegon, they're the same guy. inheriting after all this stuff. Anyway, yeah. So those are really good takes, y'all, about the crowning and what it means to them. I think as well, one of y'all wrote a note here. This would be a really good spot for Helaena to utter a quick prophecy, a 1-liner, 2-liner, during the coronation. Yeah. Something like crown them to kill them even would be pretty appropriate.
While she's sewing.
Yeah. She hasn't said anything about herself that we know of. Pretty much everything we've seen so far, it seems to be she's commenting on other people's futures.
Yeah, unless you believe the beast beneath the boards relates to blood and cheese, which is possible for sure.
Yeah.
We're kind of off that idea. I think Aziz and I both lean towards it not referring to blood and cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah,
2 on the nose.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I really do like the scorpion beast beneath the board. I like the idea of that a lot because it relates to who she's talking to. She's talking to Jace right there.
And there's also kind of a sadness if it's not, when you pointed out, right, like she hasn't said anything about herself. Even with this power, she never gets the information she needs to protect her family. Like, what good is this sort of power if you can't protect the ones you love?
Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Good said. Also, I see some great notes here from y'all on the crowning symbolism and just the taking it back to Viserys' dream and how this relates to that. We actually do have a shot from the preseason trailer. I think it was in the whatever that thing was called, the Today's Yet to Come or whatever the weeks ahead, where they showed Eric holding Viserys' crown and offering it, which is pretty clearly the scene where he gives it to Rhaenyra, most likely in episode 10. Maybe it's right at the end of episode 9 or something. They show that just as like a coda or something. But tell us all how y'all think this relates to Viserys' dream. This is a really interesting take you have here.
I really love the crowns. First of all, we get that shot of Aegon the Conqueror's crown. I know we're curious about the rubies. What's going on? Where's those rubies? Maybe they're being reset for the coronation. But we do get a shot of this crown. It is the Conqueror crown, which does connect to, in my opinion, Aegon, the Conqueror Babe, as he's called in second of his name. There's been a lot of back and forth about Alicent and the prophecy, but back in episode 3, in front of the flames, Viserys tells Alicent, when Rhaenyra was a child, I saw it in a dream as vivid as these flames, a male babe born to me wearing the Conqueror's crown. And I so wanted it to be true, to be a dreamer myself. And continues on. And Alicent hears that and she's like, sure, whatever you say, Viserys, whatever you're saying, I believe you. It makes sense to me. But then on his deathbed, he actually pulls kind of an Aegon 4 in some ways, right? And he's like, no, Aegon's song, he's the true heir, is what Alicent hears. But it kind of was it was followed up 16 years ago with this thought that he had a vision of Aegon, of a boy being born with Aegon's crown on his head. So here, putting that crown on his head, and he's been called the Conqueror Babe, and they're so trying to put this symbol of legitimacy, not unlike Aegon's, the new Aegon that we have in the main series, Aegon right, with 6. Dany, with all of the trappings of powers and the true legitimacy. He'll have Blackfire, as the book says. He will have the crown. And that symbolism is so important, and the penis, and it's so important to these people, right, to have those symbols to protect them, where Rhaenyra will get Jaehaerys's crown, the good old king's crown, her father's crown, Viserys, which they kind of represent a golden era, right, an era where Westeros was changing for the better and almost had made some progress from what it once was, and they'd sewn it all back together. And while they bled inside, right, Jaehaerys and Alicent had a horrible turmoil in their family, while they bled within, the realm was prospering. And that's a great symbol of legitimacy for Rhaenyra, of what she wants to be as a queen, maybe not necessarily what she'll become thanks to these external forces. Yeah, to the war. Thanks to the war. And the trauma.
Do you think that Aegon's lovers ever be like, oh, Aegon, the Conqueror Babe?
No, Aegon.
Conqueror Babe.
Conqueror Babe.
Babe.
You conquer me, babe.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah, let's not go there. Well said, Chloe. That was really good. So, yeah, I also kind of wonder as well, well, not wonder as well. I just wanted to point out, just for fun, that in that scene where Viserys is lamenting in front of the flames and talking about his dream, and he puts his hand on Alicent's belly as he's weeping at the end, that's little Helaena in there talking about a dreamer. She's she was like 8 or 9 months pregnant with Helaena. That's pretty cool. Yeah,
soaking it all in the womb.
She was getting it. Yeah, she was listening through the womb there. So let's to our last subtopic for the day.
Is the best.
Long may she Rhaenys. She never got to sit the throne, but she's the queen of many of our hearts. Eve Best's Rhaenys has been excellent, and her role is probably larger in the show than the books. Certainly in this phase of the story, because she doesn't have any role at this part in the book at all, meaning the coronation of Aegon II. But she is here, present, and I really wonder what she's going to do. So, real wild card here. I think there's wild card, yeah. She's a lot more capable than Charlie, though. So, but there's a shot where she's like trying to open a door and it won't open, which presumably means she's been locked in her chamber. She looks like she's in her pajamas. So she's like, this is probably like they locked her door in the middle of the night when they discovered Viserys was dead. What they may not realize is this Red Keep is full of secret doors. I don't know if she knows about any of them, but that would be pretty funny if she's like, well, I'll just use this secret door over here. Then you fools, you forgot about the secret passageway. But assuming she doesn't know about that, I have no idea how this is going to happen. Like we talked earlier about Criston Cole sent to round up all the Black supporters and get their obedience. That they clearly, if that happens, they have to know she's one of those. She's a dragon rider. She's married to Corlys. She's admitted agreed to the marriage of her niece, her grandchildren to Jason Luke.
Yeah, technically, to be clear, she didn't need to agree to it because it's not her permission to give, just to be clear. Rhaenys, it was more that they were using those two girls as bargaining chips with Rhaenys, not that she gave her permission exactly. But
it appears she gave it, yeah.
But yes, but if Viserys had died and Rhaenys had not said that she was down for that marriage, they might have been like, oh, well, maybe Rhaenys would side with us. Like, they might not have known for sure, but I think at this point, they should know that Rhaenys is, in fact, backing them. But even so, they might wonder, because of the Laenor, issue, they might think, well, maybe she can be turned, because if we play up on the fact that they killed her son, presumably, like that. I feel like that's the sort of thing that any of the Greens would question, why Rhaenys would side with the killers of her son.
Yeah, that is a little tricky. Let me throw one more comment in here before I turn it over to you guys to get your take on this. There's this famous line that we've been hearing since before the season started, that we didn't necessarily know who it was when we first heard it, but we do now. It's Rhaenys saying, "Have you never imagined yourself on the Iron Throne?" It was a great line. Apparently it's spoken to Alicent, which is like, yeah, that's really interesting. So we know she's getting involved. She's using a little psychological warfare here.
We know she doesn't just escape her room and leave. Like, she has a scene where she interacts with the Greens in some way.
Yeah, and maybe that's related to Alicent's reluctance. We saw how Alicent's reluctant to do some of these things. Like, she's like, I don't really want to do this Driftmark thing. I mean, she goes forward with it, but she expresses her reluctance. Maybe Rhaenys senses that reluctance. I don't know. What do y'all think about all this? Tell us what your take is here.
Yeah, she definitely is reluctant, it seems. And I think that there's something great that they're finally giving Rhaenys a little something to chew off in these scenes. And Eve Best is amazing. Mm-hmm. I love Nurse Jackie. If you haven't watched Nurse Jackie, you all have to. But her political machinations, she goes with the side that she sees providing security and safety to her family, and kind of the winning side. She doesn't want Luke to be the heir, right, to Driftmark. She wanted Baela to be the heir because, her husband to stand the hell up and prove he's a real feminist. And your real ally, Corlys, what is up with that? But she still bets on the side that wins, and seeing how they're going to usurp Rhaenyra's claim, because Rhaenys was Rhaenyra before Rhaenyra was Rhaenyra. Yeah. Rhaenys has gone through it. Jaehaerys was like, Aemond's my heir. It's very important. Aemond's my heir. And then Aemond dies young. Mirish bloodbath. How about those bolts? Am I right?
Oh yeah.
Too soon for another heir to be born. Not unlike Viserys' whole life problem here, but the opposite. So the line passing from Rhaenys gets skipped over. So meanwhile, Rhaenys has to watch her aunts, her uncles, her cousins, all of them die, whether from war, inner turmoil, whatever, sadness. And besides knowing she's ferocious and brave and just, like really not afraid of dying and just like this fearless character, we don't really get any nuance on Rhaenys in the book. We don't see how these deaths really do affect her and how she feels. I love seeing Rhaenyra and her have kind of a tension, because she's already been there. She's already done this. She has a different worldview because she's been through it all already. And her back's against the wall to protect her family.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point, or several good points there. Really a good breakdown of her character and her situation. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're going to see how this plays out. Let me throw another wild card into this scenario before any of the other you two want to weigh in, which is that what if she gets word that the sea snake is like recovered during this? Because we know he's already back on Driftmark. We know that she. Yeah. At the beginning of the last episode, she hears, 3 days he's going to be arriving at Driftmark. And then she immediately goes to King's Landing. So presumably he's already gotten back to Driftmark while all this is happening. So maybe there's word that he's like, hey, he's had an upswing, which could impact, like if she thought he was going to die, that changes a lot of things. And we also confirm that she's at the Black Council, right?
Yeah, she is. What's interesting to me is that we don't in the photo we don't immediately see
Corlys himself.
Like it's like
he should be easy to
spot.
too.
He should be relatively easy to spot. Here, I'll just put it on the screen for everyone to see what we're talking about.
Few people have hair like that. Yeah,
but you can't see Rhaenys is next to Baela, and Rhaenys is in armor. Rhaenyra is crowned and next to Rhaena. We've got a few Kingsguard, including Eric and I guess Steffan Darklyn, who we thought was Herald at first, and then probably Laurent Marbrand or someone else.
Or Willis Fell,
but no, it does not look like we see Corlys in the shot, and Damon, of course, across the way. But it doesn't mean that Corlys is not there, and that it is a blurry picture. But you guys can judge for yourself.
Yeah,
whether he's awake then.
We're looking.
We're trying to look on like our phone. We're what is it?
But so we'll see if he awakens. I'm still rooting for him to awaken. Be like, it's like he wakes up and the only word he says is Laenor.
He's like, his name is Summer.
I love Rhaenys' Lady Gwyn cosplay.
Yeah,
that is amazing. Isn't that so good that she's cosplaying Lady Gwyn from last year's season?
Amazing. Interesting.
So one last bit about Alicent, and this will be our last question for the day, unless there's a question from the chat that I've
super
missed.
chat or whatever, but yeah.
But the question is, what do we think about as a plot device for Alicent specifically, not just overall for the succession crisis, but as Alicent hearing the deathbed stuff that that Viserys thought he was talking to Rhaenyra. She's certainly not reluctant in the book to make all these moves. In the show, she is, and this prophecy stuff is a little part of what's pushing her in the other direction. It pushes her towards less reluctance. Does this humanize her? Does this take agency away or give it to her? I'm curious, how do we see this in that perspective, and how does it maybe speak to events yet to come? I see one of y'all made the note about Alysanne's law here, which is really interesting to consider here as well.
Yeah, I thought for me it's interesting because I think that they play it a lot of different ways, right? And I think that there's a couple of different emotions going on there, and we discussed this in our review of episode 8. And it does a couple of things, right? There's an aspect in which you're getting a continuation of Alicent as being dutiful, right? She's listening. She has her own desires that we see come forth at the end of that dinner, right? And what she kind of wants and her relationship with Rhaenyra, which I know Chloe will talk about in a bit. So, but there's that aspect in which you stay consistent with Alicent doing her duty all the time, even if she doesn't want to. And then you also have maybe she is reading a little bit of what she wants to into what's being said from this nonsense as well, because she's kind of don't tell me everything that I've been through is for nothing, right?
Yeah.
I must have meant, all of this must have meant more than nothing to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it helps give her certainty that she didn't have.
Yeah, and even with what Rhaenys might be saying to her before, haven't you ever pictured yourself there? Don't you understand what you're taking away if you do this? And there is something of that, you better make it worth it then, huh? If you're going to pull this off. I really hope by the end of the episode that she is the person driving that, because also it's prophecy. What person hasn't made prophecy about them? Everybody that hears a prophecy is wow, this must be about me. That's me, boy. I have to do it.
It's the comment writ large. Yeah, exactly.
It's the comment for sure. And they're plays really well emotionally with them, that Rhaenyra will return out of that love for her and vice versa, or so she thought, until some variables. And of course, that's probably why there's 7 days that she leaves the freaking body out, because she's trying to figure out how to A, not get in trouble with her ex-girlfriend, right? And then B, literally though, it is her BFF, and it's you still have that small, they've come to a better place of healing between them. The problem is that all of their kids have not, because they have no emotional resources or tools to have done that. And also, they're all little weirdos, most of them. So the biggest problem, too, is that they are living in a world where you have a law that Alysanne got Jaehaerys to put into place about the plight of widows throughout the 7 kingdoms. That basically she learned this by visiting the women courts, that in 52 AC, King Jaehaerys put the widow's law into place, reaffirming the right of the eldest son or eldest daughter, where there was no son, to inherit, but requiring said heirs to maintain surviving widows in the same condition they had enjoyed before their husband's death. A lord's widow, be she a second, third, or later wife, could no longer be driven from his castle, nor deprived of her servants, clothing, or incomes. The same law also forbade men from disinheriting their children by a first wife in order to bestow their lands, seat, or property on a later wife or her own children.
Boom.
So they're living in a world where these are the laws they're navigating, because this is it's checkmate, right? This is, both of them are in gridlock on this. The law completely supports and both tears both of them down, because that's the world they live in Westeros. That's what Westeros is about.
Yeah.
So Alicent is going to take in, maybe this won't come up probably. We aren't going to hear about this law. But if we do, I'm sorry that I said it, Ryan. I believe in you the whole time. But I doubt this will come up. But that's really just explaining the dichotomy of the world they live in and how it's against them, and that Alicent has to take the only power afforded to her through the only way she can.
Yeah. She upholds the system because it is the only within the system. At least she has power and agency, I guess, over her own life, and it's despicable. But it speaks to, I mean, something that we see a lot, right? Like people uphold terrible systems in order to retain their power.
Yep.
Yep.
And the bigger the power, the more intense it is, and the fewer rules and protections in place, the fewer checks and balances, the more it devolves into things like this. Yeah, it's a real damning statement on monarchies in general. This one, of course, is particularly huge. Westeros is a rather large continent. All right, well, let's make our way to the outro. In through the outdoor we shall go, or out through the indoor. Thanks to Mick Floyd for the super chat. Says, shout out, is he so laid back, my favorite Potter. I don't know if I'm always so laid back, but I'm glad I can
I don't know if he's always so laid
promote
back
that impression to listeners.
Yeah, it's a great mask you've put on for the world.
Twirl my mustache upwards here. Yeah.
Oh, maybe you guys should do that for Halloween.
We're gonna be Eric and Arik for Halloween. That's what you're saying.
Oh my God,
our names both start with A. Yeah.
Maybe we should have done that.
Yeah. It's not too
Eric
late.
and Arik is a fun one to do. I mean, you literally, because you have to do like you just have to do that like really ugly hairstyle they have where it's like slicked down like straight in the middle, and then you just give yourself one has a twirly up and one has a down.
Amazing.
I would like to see that.
That's hilarious. All right, so thanks so much, Girls Gone Canon, for coming on. This was really awesome. Chloe and Eliana, y'all are amazing at this, and I hope that people go to check you out if they haven't already. Whoever of y'all who aren't regular listeners of them,
especially because people here, you're listening because you like spoilers, and they're doing, like they said, all spoiler coverage. Actually, so if you want really good spoilery coverage, maybe a little sooner than our Saturday streams because they're releasing earlier, you can get a spoilery chat before Saturday, perhaps.
Yeah, give us another rundown of what y'all are doing, where to find you guys, like your social media, anything you think is important to convey to people here.
Absolutely. Swing by Tuesdays. Most of the time they're up in the mornings. Patrons sometimes get them the Monday night for the last couple episodes of Series 1 here. And otherwise, you can find us over at patreon.com/girlsgonecanon. Our
Canon.
Canon, yes, where our patrons in the Stranger tier and above, the $5 tier, get monthly bonus episodes. We've been doing a series called Mothers of the Dragon, or more affectionately known as
MILFs of the Dragon.
That's very important on all of the mothers from Fire and Blood. And then, of course, our $10 tier, Thunder tier and above, you get lifetime access to our private Discord server,
which is
an
fun
annual
time.
gift. Yeah, we have a little too much fun sometimes, actually. Weekly voice chats where we do a House of the Dragon discussion hosted by our good friend Maddie, and we go through the episode on Fridays at 2 p.m. and just hang out, and monthly events like brunch/happy hour. And then otherwise, Fridays, Bran Stark. You know, we're doing Bran for now.
Yeah. Get in on that, Bran. I like chatting with Maddie. Maddie's great for leading the discussions.
Yeah,
she's fun.
Yeah,
she cracks me up.
Yeah,
she gets bullied a lot. Yeah, no, she's very fiercely Team Green.
Yeah, well, you gotta have some.
And I will say that if you're listening and you're not on Discord, there's a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire podcasts and communities that are on Discord. We obviously have the History of Westeros Discord. There's Girls Gone Canon. Radio Westeros has one. Gray Area has
join
one.
All.
Like, there's a bunch. So if you're like, oh, I don't really know about using Discord, well, maybe it's more worth it to you if you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna join like 5 or 10 communities all at once. There's a bunch of great ones. There's like some different Reddit, like the Pure ASOF has a server. There's a House of the Dragon subreddit has a server. There's many places to be talking on Discord.
We have unsullied discussion and sullied discussion. You know, there's different things.
You can join our Discord by going to bit.ly/howdiscord. So if you're not in there, there's an easy link for you. And to join some of the other Discords, you'll have to support them on Patreon. So I hope some of you look into that.
Yeah. And you can find them on all the platforms. You can find us as well, all the great pod platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, you know it. You find them, you find us. We're all in the same places.
And I do want to put a last plug. If you love watching shows, trying to get everyone to watch His Dark Materials. It's a great time.
You guys
and
cover that.
I think the final the final season is this December. So we'll be covering that
It's a
too.
great
If
book
you like more
series.
HBO
Yes.
shows. Exactly.
Yeah, we did the whole series. We've covered the entire main trilogy and all of the novellas as well. So
I'll say
The
I
finished book
read
series.
all of the books and I haven't seen any of the show.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm your target
Oh.
audience.
I recommend
of
it.
someone
Yeah.
who
Faithful.
hasn't been reached. But if you're saying it's the final season this December,
Yup.
so the
Yeah,
time
it's
the
time.
time's it's time for me to watch it if I'm going to watch it. In other words, is what you're saying.
You have time to binge it all
Exactly,
right
I
before
do.
December.
I think you make a good point. I mean, if it's something that you're into enough that you're covering it, and I read the books and liked them, so maybe I will. Maybe I will.
Right
Very
on. Yeah. So if you're a His Dark Materials person, you have a new supply of entertainment coming your way. If you haven't already checked out
I
Girls
feel
Gone
like if you're a
Canon.
His Dark Materials fan, you probably had heard of Girls Gone Canon
Yeah.
because I don't think there's a ton of podcasts in that.
I don't know of
fandom.
anyone else covering it.
So yeah, and maybe
there are a
there's
handful of
couple,
good
yeah.
ones that we
There's some-
know. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a couple good ones out
They've
there.
had good
but
names, like-
yeah, like Her Dark Materials.
Ah,
so
We
good.
also had
Okay,
that
yeah.
His
That's
Dark
good.
Materials
His Dark
handle, Twitagaze.
Oh, those are some great ones.
There's a great
good-
budding community, and
You would like the puns.
I think once you get into Get Aziz to watch it with you, and we'll drag him in.
That would be fun for me to watch it with him.
If
'cause
you
I
watch
ha-
it,
I
I'll
would
give it a
have-
shot, for
I would
sure.
have a book reader perspective,
Yeah.
and he would have a non-book
Yeah, I
reader
could ask
perspective.
you
So it would be
questions.
good.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
I would do, it would be
Yeah.
that. Although
Sounds
it's
like
been a long time since I read it,
Monday
so
and Saturday.
I would be
or
closer
Tuesday,
to a
Saturday.
definitely somewhat unsullied because I remember the first book much more clearly than the next books, but I did read them all.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
All right. Well, folks, thanks everyone for coming out. Enjoy episode 9. Can't wait to talk about it with y'all afterwards. But until then, you know what to do. Valar re-read us and Valar re-watch.